At our wedding, my husband proudly announced that I would only get $50 a month to buy groceries. His words shocked me, and the happy, celebratory atmosphere instantly turned cold. "I'm so lucky to have such a cheap housemaid," he said, and I realized that's how he saw me. It felt like everything was fading to darkness. Suddenly, my father stood up and shouted, "Is that all you have to say, you jerk?" Jack, my husband, looked down on him and arrogantly said, "Don't get too cocky, old man." Jack didn't know what was coming. "My name is Sarah. I met Jack in college, and we were in the same year. After graduation, we lost touch, but when we were both 24, Jack invited me to a reunion. That night, I drank a little too much and felt sick. Jack was kind and looked after me, telling everyone not to force me to drink. I saw how much he'd changed since our college days, and he was so caring, like he treated me as if I were precious. He confessed that he'd liked me back in college and threw the reunion just to see me again. We started dating, and after a few months, I moved into his apartment. At 25, he proposed, and we got married. It turned out Jack was the heir to a large company. He never bragged about it, but people often told me I was lucky to marry him. His parents seemed really nice when we met them after our engagement, and I felt at ease. My parents were also happy about our marriage. My father, who owned a small business and had worked hard from a young age, was probably relieved that I wouldn't have to struggle financially anymore. Planning our wedding was exciting. We booked the venue and picked out my wedding dress together. But one evening, just a few months before the wedding, Jack said something unexpected at dinner. "Sarah, your cooking is always delicious. I think you'd be great at running the house as a full-time housewife," he said. I was surprised, because I had planned to continue working even after we got married. Jack had never mentioned wanting me to quit my job. He continued, "It's fine if you work part-time while doing housework and taking care of the kids. I'm sure you'd like some pocket money too." But I had been working hard at my job and wanted to keep working full-time. "I need to train a successor for the company, leave the money-making to me, and focus on being a homemaker," he said, smiling proudly like he was pleased to be the only one bringing in money. "But we don't even have kids yet, and even if we do, I still want to work. I don't want to put everything on you," I replied, trying to make him understand. My insistence seemed to upset Jack, and his face suddenly darkened. "I won't slack off on housework or raising kids, I promise," I found myself saying, because I really wanted to keep working. Jack smiled brightly and said, "Okay, if you insist, that's fine. They say women feel uneasy when they lose touch with society, so go ahead and do your best with housework and childcare." I was relieved that he agreed, but something about his words, "do your best with housework and childcare," didn't sit right with me. When I talked about it with my friends, they told me, "Jack cares about you, Sarah, he's a good husband." Their words made me feel happy, like I was being cared for, and it eased my concerns. After that, Jack and I would sometimes talk about our future. "Sarah, you're such a strong, independent woman who wants to keep working even after we get married. I'm lucky to have someone like you as my wife," he would say. His kind words always made me happy. "I'll help out with some of the housework too." "All right, I'll handle the household accounts and give you the living expenses. We'll stick to that budget each month," he added. I was touched by his offer because I had always thought managing finances was a woman's job. I felt relieved knowing I wouldn't have to do everything myself. Our wedding day finally came, surrounded by many guests. The ceremony went smoothly, and I was filled with happiness. But then, at the end of the ceremony, something shocking happened. During his speech, Jack suddenly said, "I'm going to make my wife work with only $50 for groceries every month." I was stunned, my mouth dropped open in disbelief. The other guests began whispering, and the once joyful atmosphere turned cold. Jack grinned at me, oblivious to the fact that he had just ruined our wedding. "I'm so lucky to have such a cheap maid," he said. I couldn't believe my ears. What was he talking about? I was horrified by his sudden change. I never agreed to such a ridiculous plan of only $50 for groceries. "You agreed when I said I'd handle the finances, didn't you?" he said. "Well, yes," I stammered, realizing that this might have been his plan all along. I felt like everything had just turned upside down. Then Jack said, "I let my wife say she wants to do all the housework and childcare while working full-time. I'm sure she'll be able to handle all the chores perfectly and make nutritious, filling meals for just $50 a month." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Quickly, I covered the mic with my hand and said, "Don't just say whatever you want. I won't accept this. Jack looked at me, confused. What's wrong? Didn't I tell you to do your best with the housework and childcare? Aren't you supposed to help out too? I never said anything like that, I replied. We can't live together like this. Suddenly, Jack's expression changed. His eyes grew cold, and he whispered in my ear, "We're bound by this ceremony. It's too late to cancel the marriage now, right? We've already turned in our marriage certificate. Do you really want to get divorced? You're threatening me? Quit messing with me," I said, shocked. I never thought I'd argue with Jack, especially on what was supposed to be the happiest day of my life. I felt full of regret and anger. My face grew hot, and tears started to well up in my eyes. This was what I had signed up for. I couldn't believe I was being treated like a servant by the man I had married. At that moment, I regretted marrying Jack. Just then, someone suddenly stood up and walked toward us. It was my father, Robert. His face was red with anger, and his eyes were filled with fury as he glared at Jack. "How dare you treat my daughter like this in front of her parents?" my father shouted. His voice froze the tense atmosphere, and the guests held their breath, watching the standoff between my father and Jack. "What's your problem? Don't get so cocky," Jack said, looking down on my father with an evil expression I had never seen before. It sent a chill down my spine. My father was the president of a large corporation, and I was his successor. Jack's company was small, and I couldn't understand why he was acting so arrogant. When I had introduced my father to Jack, he had praised my father, saying he was a great man, even though his company was small. He had also told me that his feelings for me wouldn't change, because of my family's background. I realized then that Jack had just been using sweet words to deceive me. As Jack was about to say something else to my father, we all heard the loud crash of glass shattering. Everyone turned to see what had happened. There, standing in the doorway, was Jack's father. His hand was shaking, and his face had turned an alarming shade of blue. His expression was full of panic, in complete contrast to Jack's calm demeanor. Jack's father looked like he was about to faint, his face pale and trembling. I could understand why. His son had been saying things that would anger the last person he'd want to upset. "Shut up, it's all your fault, Dad," Jack snapped. Just as a father-son argument was about to break out, my father's voice echoed through the room. "That's enough." For a moment, there was complete silence. Then my father calmly asked, "Sarah, what are you going to do? Do you still want to marry this man?" I quietly shook my head. I can't be happy marrying a man like this, a man who would treat me like a maid, trying to make me live on just $50 for food each month. I can't bear the thought of being with him. This is economic abuse, isn't it, Jack? I will sue you. I'm also going to annul our marriage. Be prepared for that. Jack seemed unfazed. "What? Are you okay with being a divorcee?" he sneered. "Well, you're going to be one too, so we might as well share the pain. I won't hold back anymore." I had completely lost all feelings for him. Once I realized he didn't love me, I knew I couldn't stay with him under such ridiculous conditions. I'd rather be a divorcee than be treated like this. My father nodded in agreement. "That's probably for the best." Then, with a cold look, my father added, "As for your company, we will take appropriate action. I wonder what will happen to it now." It seemed Jack finally understood the seriousness of the situation. He dropped to his knees and begged for mercy. "Please, we'll teach him a lesson. Don't cancel the marriage. Sarah was wrong. Please forgive me. I'll let you handle the housework, child care, and work however you want. I won't limit your food expenses anymore. You can even hire a maid and relax if you want. Let's go home, Dad," I said. I apologized to all the guests and returned their gift money. Then I canceled the wedding. Thanks to the skilled lawyer my father hired, we were able to sue Jack in court. The reason for our broken engagement was determined to be Jack's fault, and he was forced to pay for all the wedding costs. On top of that, I received compensation. Because he failed at securing a convenient marriage and humiliated his father by making him beg on his knees, Jack was disowned by his parents. He would never be able to become the CEO of the company now. Desperate, Jack caused trouble at work and got into legal trouble with the police. From what I heard, he ended up getting fired and, in the end, became lost, living aimlessly with no stable job. Of course, after all the deceit and being abandoned by his family, there was no chance he would ever marry into a wealthy family again. His life turned miserable. As for me, I became a divorcee, but my father introduced me to a kind and sincere young employee at his company. We've been dating, and we're planning to get married next year.
From the outside, everything seemed perfect, but behind closed doors it was a different story. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for another typical morning. Jordan sat at the head of the table, scanning today's newspaper, barely looking up when I set his plate down. "You're home all day. Why is the house never clean?" Jordan's voice broke the brittle silence. I clenched my jaw, but kept my tone even. "There's a lot to do, Jordan, especially with Lila." "Don't use Lila as an excuse," he snapped, eyes still glued to the paper. "It's not that hard. Mom, where's my lunch?" Lila's voice brought a momentary respite from the tension. I handed her the lunchbox with a forced smile. "I've got it right here, sweetie." I knelt down to fix a loose strand of hair. "Have a great day at school." Lila hugged me tight before running out to catch the bus. I stood slowly, feeling the weight of Jordan's gaze now fixed on me. "When are you going to stop pampering her? She needs to learn independence," he said, his tone low but razor sharp. "She's just 9, Jordan. She'll grow up soon enough." His sneer curled, a habitual display of his disdain. "Sure, if you say so." I returned to the kitchen, the silence hanging heavy between us. The sound of clinking dishes echoed as I cleaned up. I avoided his eyes, stirring my coffee absent-mindedly. The facade we presented to the world was intact, but the reality was this constant friction, this perpetual dance of tension and disapproval. Jordan stood suddenly, pushing his chair back with an exaggerated scrape. "I'm heading to the office. Try to make yourself useful today." The door slammed behind him, rattling the picture frames on the wall. I sighed, pressing my temple. Later in the day, after tending to the house and catching up on emails, I picked up Lila from school. Her cheerful chatter was a welcome distraction. "How was your day, sweetheart?" "Good. Miss Parker said I'm doing great in math. She thinks I can join the advanced class next month." My heart swelled with pride. "That's amazing. We'll celebrate tonight, okay?" Dinner was a quieter affair. Lila spoke excitedly about her lessons and friends, her joy unshadowed by the earlier morning squabbles. Jordan returned late, barely offering a grunt as he sat down. His attention drifted more to his overflowing work bag than to us. "Dad, guess what? Miss Parker said I can join the advanced math class." Lila's eyes sparkled with hope. Jordan gave a curt nod. "That's nice, Lila. Keep up the hard work." He turned to me, eyes narrowing. "Vivian, there's a seminar out of town next week. I'll be gone for 3 days." I nodded, forcing a smile. "Of course." After Lila went to bed, I cleaned up, my movements automatic. The house echoed with emptiness despite us both being there. Jordan's eyes followed me, cold and assessing. "Why do you look so tired all the time? If you can't handle the house, maybe you should start acting more responsibly." I turned to him, my patience finally thinning. "I'm doing everything I can, Jordan. Maybe you could help instead of criticizing." A silence stretched before he spoke, his voice a low, dangerous murmur. "Watch your tone. Don't forget who makes all this possible." I turned away, my hands shaking. We had started this journey with dreams and promises, but now it felt like walking on broken glass. Every interaction with Jordan sliced pieces of my spirit, but I endured for Lila. As I lay in bed that night, I heard Jordan's hushed conversation on the phone in the living room, his laughter hollow and unfamiliar. I swallowed hard, feeling a tear slip down my cheek. The perfect facade was just that, a facade. No one saw the cracks unless they looked closely, and soon enough those cracks would become impossible to ignore. I remember the day I quit my job vividly. It was 2 months after the wedding, and Jordan sat me down at the kitchen table. "Vivian, we need to talk," he said, folding his hands like a CEO about to fire an employee. I took a seat, sensing something serious. "What's on your mind?" "I think it's best for you to stop working. We need someone to take care of the house and, eventually, our kids. That should be you." I blinked, taken aback. "But why?" "I love my job, Jordan. I worked hard to get there." He leaned forward, eyes hard. "Exactly, and now our family needs you to work hard here. You don't have a choice. It's what's best for us." I reluctantly agreed, convincing myself it was for the better. Jordan's insistence felt like compromise, hidden behind a facade of concern. Things deteriorated quickly after that. Jordan's controlling nature surfaced more often, his voice a constant reminder of my narrowed world. One morning I broached the subject again. "Jordan, I'd like to find a part-time job, something small, maybe a few hours a week." His reaction was immediate and sharp. Stay-at-home moms working part-time? That's just an excuse to get out and cheat. Are you planning to cheat on me, Vivian? Of course not. I just miss working, feeling productive. You have plenty of work right here, he said, gesturing broadly to the house. And don't even think about arguing. This is final. Days turned into weeks, and the strain tugged harder at the edges of our lives. I tried to speak with him about sharing the chores. Jordan, could you help with Lila's homework tonight? Just this once? He barely glanced up. That's your job. Deal with it. Frustration boiled inside. It's not just my job. She's our daughter, and I need some help. He smirked. My job is to provide. Your job is to support me by taking care of the house. We each have our roles. I felt any hope slipping through my fingers. Conversations ended before they started, each attempt quashed by his domineering presence. One evening, after another tense dinner, I decided to push back. Jordan, this isn't how it should be. We're supposed to be a team. His face darkened. Teams have leaders, and I'm the leader here. Don't forget that. I bit my tongue, retreating into the silence. The pattern was clear. Any step I took forward was met with a wall of resistance. The isolation grew. Old friends faded away as our lives became consumed with Jordan's overbearing expectations. He picked at everything. How the meals were cooked, how the laundry was folded, how the house was cleaned. Nothing was ever good enough. On a rare visit to my sister Emily's place, I finally voiced my frustrations. Emily, I feel like I'm drowning. Jordan's got me trapped. Emily looked at me with worry. Vivian, you need to talk to him. This isn't okay. I've tried, but he shuts me down every time. Then you need to find another way. Don't let him control you like this. Her words lingered, a small lifeline in the overwhelming tide of Jordan's demands. Returning home, I steeled myself, determined to reclaim some semblance of independence. But the cycle continued, each day blending into the next, filled with Jordan's cutting remarks and impossible expectations. Months passed, and every attempt to bring balance to our lives was met with Jordan's iron fist. Yet, in the quiet moments, a resolve began to grow within me. The picture-perfect life we presented to the outside world was a lie, and the time was coming to face that truth head-on. The perfect facade was starting to crack, and I knew it wouldn't be long before everything shattered. One dreary afternoon, after sorting through the laundry, I noticed Jordan had left his laptop open on the kitchen table. The faint sound of an email notification drew me closer. My fingers hesitated over the touchpad, a knot twisting in my stomach. Curiosity got the better of me, and I clicked the new message. It was from Naomi, one of his coworkers. The subject line read, "Last night." I clicked it open, my heart pounding. The contents were gut-wrenching. "Had an amazing time with you. Can't wait for our next trip," it read, sprinkled with heart emojis. My hands trembled. Jordan walked in unexpectedly. "What are you doing with my laptop?" His voice was icy. I turned the screen towards him, eyes blazing. "Who's Naomi?" He barely flinched. "She's just someone from work. You're imagining things." "Imagining things," I repeated incredulously. "This email says otherwise. Amazing time. Next trip? How could you?" He shrugged, nonchalant. "It's not what you think." "Relax, Vivian." The nonchalance in his voice added fuel to my anger. "Relax. You're cheating on me, and you tell me to relax?" He raised an eyebrow, a smirk forming. "Calm down. You always overreact. It's your problem, not mine." The selfishness, the manipulation in his words cut deep. "Our problem, Jordan. Our marriage? You promised? Did any of that mean anything to you?" Jordan scoffed, shaking his head. "Stop being so dramatic. It's just harmless fun. You're blowing this out of proportion." "Harmless? Fun? To you, maybe. But to me?" My voice broke. "You've shattered my trust." He leaned closer, his tone dropping to a merciless whisper. "You should be grateful I even bother coming home. You're lucky to have me." Fury coursed through me. For years I'd put up with the belittling, the control. But this was unforgivable. "You're despicable," I hissed. He chuckled, pulling the laptop away. "And you're overly sensitive. This ends now, Vivian. Go back to your chores." I stared at him, disbelief mingling with an emerging resolve. "This won't end the way you think, Jordan." The encounter marked a turning point. I avoided him after that, focusing all my energy on Lila and the house, my mind working on an escape plan. One evening, after tucking Layla into bed, I sat alone in the living room with my thoughts. Jordan's dismissive attitude, his betrayal, ignited something within me. I needed a way to regain control. to show him I wasn't the submissive wife he had molded me into. Late into the night, I searched online for support groups and stumbled upon blogs written by women in similar situations. An idea took root. By sharing my story, I could find strength, and maybe, just maybe, I could turn the tide. I set up a simple blog, anonymous but real, and began documenting the daily struggles, the facade, the truth. The first post felt like lifting a weight off my chest. Days turned into nights of secret writing, my audience growing slowly but steadily. The comments and messages from others offered solace. "Stay strong, Vivian," one message read. "You're not alone." Those words fueled my resolve. Jordan's unmasking had begun, and I was determined to reclaim my life. The perfect facade was crumbling, and the real battle had just started. Every evening, after Lila was asleep, I poured my heart out on the anonymous blog. The responses were a lifeline, a validation of my feelings. I created this secret world where I could finally express my truth without fear. One day, while Jordan was at work, I received a message from an online follower. "Vivian, your strength inspires me. Keep fighting." The support warmed my heart, reminding me I wasn't alone in my struggles. Jordan's behavior hadn't improved. If anything, he became more insufferable, especially when I mentioned needing help around the house. One evening, I dared to bring up chores again. "Jordan, can you take out the trash tonight?" He glanced up from his phone, face hardening. "With what you do all day, you can't even manage the trash." "It's not just the trash, Jordan, there's so much more. Can't you see that?" He stood up, towering over me. "I see laziness. I see excuses. You spend all day at home. What do you even do?" Anger bubbled up. "I take care of Lila, the house, everything. I'm asking for a little help. Is that too much?" He laughed, the sound devoid of any humor. "Help? You're pathetic, Vivian. You can't even handle simple tasks." I turned away, my hands trembling, focusing on my blog later that night. The support kept growing, and sharing my daily battles fortified my resolve to fight back. One evening, while Jordan was out, I dug through an old photo album. It felt like another life, those happy early days. As I turned the pages, the contrast between then and now was stark. I found a picture of us at the beach, both smiling, holding hands. I traced the edges, remembering the warmth of those moments, now long lost. The next day, as I cleaned, I heard Lila calling from her room. "Mom, can you help with my homework?" I went up, sitting beside her. "What are you working on?" "Math problems. Can you show me how to solve these?" I patiently explained the steps, her eyes lighting up with understanding. "Thanks, Mom," she said, hugging me tight. Her simple gratitude was a stark contrast to Jordan's never-ending demands. As the weeks passed, I kept writing, my secret blog becoming an empowering outlet. One night, after a particularly harsh day with Jordan, a message popped up. "Vivian, you deserve better. Keep going. You're stronger than you think." I wiped away a tear, feeling a renewed sense of purpose. The next morning, as Jordan prepared to leave for work, he turned to me. "I have a coworker dropping by tonight. Make sure dinner is ready on time." "Who's coming over?" "Naomi. She's new at work and needs to discuss a project." My blood ran cold at the name. Keeping my voice steady, I said, "I'll prepare something special." When Jordan left, I sat down, breathing deeply. I needed to be prepared for whatever came next. Late that evening, Naomi arrived, a professional demeanor masking her true role in Jordan's life. Dinner was tense, the conversation forced. Jordan seemed unfazed, conducting himself like nothing was amiss. After dinner, as we sat in the living room, Jordan abruptly turned to me. "Vivian, I've decided. We're getting a divorce." Naomi's eyes widened, looking between us. I clenched my fists, my mind racing. "Is this why you brought her here? To announce your decision in front of her?" Jordan's calm mask slipped for a moment. "I wanted you to hear it from me directly. This isn't working." Naomi looked uncomfortable, but Jordan's words hung heavily in the air. I stood, my voice steady but filled with unspoken fury. "Fine, Jordan. If this is how you want it, then let's get it over with." The cracks in our facade were now wide open, and the next steps would determine everything. As I stared at Jordan, I knew my plan needed to be flawless. And it would be. He had no idea what was coming. The morning after Jordan's announcement, I sat by my laptop, staring at the blank screen. My blog followers deserved to know, but I needed to be careful. As I began typing, raw emotions flowed. Behind each word was a plan forming, a way to expose Jordan for who he truly was. Jordan came home earlier than usual that night. Naomi will be stopping by again tomorrow, he said, not even glancing at me. Make sure it's less awkward this time. I kept my voice even. Of course, he nodded, satisfied. Good, I expect you to be on your best behavior. The next evening, Naomi arrived promptly. Jordan, acting as if nothing was out of the ordinary, served wine and started discussing work. Naomi tried to follow, but kept stealing glances at me, sensing the underlying tension. Jordan, I interrupted, hoping to catch him off guard. Why don't you tell Naomi more about our family? Jordan's eyes narrowed. What are you getting at, Vivian? I smiled sweetly. Just making conversation. Jordan ignored my provocation. Naomi, let's go over those reports again. While they talked shop, I discreetly excused myself. Upstairs, I grabbed my phone and accessed my blog. With a few taps, I published a post detailing the dinner and Jordan's announcement. I knew my followers would quickly spread the word. Downstairs, I returned to the table, my expression calm. The phone pinged with notifications, each one a small victory. Naomi looked up from her discussion with Jordan. Vivian, are you okay? I locked eyes with her, just preparing for what's coming next. Jordan frowned, sensing something amiss. Vivian, what's that supposed to mean? The doorbell rang, interrupting the tense atmosphere. It was a delivery, unplanned but oddly timed. Jordan answered the door, returning with a letter. What's this? Read it, I said, keeping my voice neutral. He tore open the envelope, his eyes scanning the contents. His face darkened. This is nonsense. Naomi leaned closer. What is it? I looked directly at her. It's proof of every lie, every betrayal. I've been documenting everything, and it's going public. Naomi's hand flew to her mouth. You did what? Jordan's rage boiled over. You're insane, Vivian. You think you can just expose me? You'll pay for this. I leaned back, feeling a cold satisfaction. It's too late, Jordan. The truth is out there. You can't control me anymore. He spun towards Naomi, desperate. She's lying. It's all lies. Naomi stood, her chair scraping back loudly. I don't know what's going on between you two, but I can't be a part of this. She grabbed her bag and headed for the door, throwing one last glance over her shoulder. You need help, Jordan. Jordan's eyes turned back to me, full of venom. You're going to regret this. I stood tall, meeting his gaze. No, Jordan, you're the one who will regret it. The night ended in silence, Jordan retreating upstairs, defeated. The next morning, I received an outpouring of support from my followers. Their messages were a balm to the wounds inflicted over the years. But the real victory was knowing Jordan's control was slipping. His perfect world was falling apart, and there was nothing he could do to stop it. For once, I didn't feel like the helpless wife. I felt powerful, ready to fight back. This wasn't over, not by a long shot. The facade had cracked beyond repair, and now it was my turn to steer the narrative. Naomi didn't come back to the house after that night, but the fallout was undeniable. Jordan's anger simmered, just below the surface, and every interaction between us was laced with tension. He started spending more time away from home, either working late or out with friends. One evening, Lila was playing in her room, the vibrant sounds of her toys filling the quiet house. I sat in the living room with my laptop, responding to messages from my blog's followers, when the front door creaked open. Jordan stumbled inside, clearly drunk. He slumped into a chair, glaring at me. You think you're clever, don't you? I kept my focus on the screen. I'm not making this about being clever, Jordan. It's about the truth. He growled, the alcohol amplifying his rage. You'll pay for ruining my life. I met his eyes, cold and unwavering. Maybe it's time you paid for all the things you've done. His fists clenched, but before he could retort, his phone buzzed on the table. He glanced at it and swore under his breath, stumbling out of the room to take the call. I returned to my blog, feeling a grim satisfaction. The next post had to be impactful. I typed fiercely, detailing more of Jordan's manipulation, painting a clear picture for my readers about the man behind the mask. A sudden knock on the door broke my concentration. Curious, I got up and opened it to find Naomi standing there looking conflicted. Naomi? I said, surprised. We need to talk, she said, stepping inside. I led her to the living room, shutting the door quietly behind us. What is it? She took a deep breath. I saw your blog. Everything you wrote, is it true? Yes, every word. She sat down, staring at her hands. I had no idea it was this bad. Jordan made it seem like everything was perfect at home. It's far from perfect, Naomi. He's been lying and controlling me for years. She shook her head, looking up with tears in her eyes. I'm so sorry, Vivian. I never wanted to come between you two. If I had known. A part of me wanted to lash out at her, but I held back. It's not entirely your fault. He's the one who committed to this marriage, and he's the one who broke that promise. Naomi nodded, taking a deep breath. What can I do to help? I regarded her thoughtfully. You can tell people the truth. Let them know the real Jordan. Later that night, after Naomi left, Jordan returned, his anger a simmering presence. What did she want? He demanded. To know the truth, I said, standing firm. And she's going to tell everyone. Jordan's face twisted with fury. Do you think anyone will believe you? They already do, I replied, holding my ground. The blog has followers. People are starting to see the real you. His eyes narrowed, but he said nothing, storming out of the room. The next morning, Naomi's public post hit the internet, confirming everything I had shared about Jordan. The comments on my blog surged with support and validation. Jordan found me in the kitchen, a dark storm cloud of rage. You think this is over? You think you've won? I met his glare head on. This is just the beginning, Jordan. You wanted a divorce? You've got it, and everything that comes with it. Jordan's world was crumbling, and there was nothing he could do to stop it. The truth was out, and there was no more hiding behind lies. I walked away, feeling more powerful than ever before. This was my story now, and I was finally the one in control. Jordan's father's sudden death was an unexpected blow. News of the heart attack reached us on a rainy Tuesday morning. Jordan reacted with immediate urgency, packing a suitcase and rushing out the door without a second glance. Take care of Leila, he barked as though she was my job alone as usual. I didn't respond, just watched him go. This was an opportunity. Jordan's father had always been kind to me, understanding and supportive despite his son's flaws. A few days later, Jordan returned home with a grim expression. We need to go over some paperwork, he said. The will is being read tomorrow and you have to be there. The next day, we sat in the lawyer's office, the air thick with tension. The lawyer, a calm and professional man, began reading the will. Jordan leaned forward, impatiently waiting to hear about his inheritance. But as the lawyer continued, it became clear things weren't going Jordan's way. To my granddaughter Lila, I leave my entire estate to be controlled by my daughter-in-law, Vivian, until Lila reaches the age of 21. Jordan's face turned a vivid shade of red. This can't be, he shouted, his voice cracking. That money is mine, the lawyer continued unfazed. Had Mr. Simmons left everything to you, it would have been against his beliefs concerning how his estate should be managed. Jordan's fists trembled with rage. Vivian, did you know about this? I didn't flinch. No, but I'm not surprised. Your father understood a lot more than you realized. The lawyer proceeded, setting out the legalities, but Jordan barely listened, lost in his fury. Once outside, he exploded. You conniving witch! You had something to do with this. I kept my voice steady. I had no idea, Jordan. But maybe it's karma paying you back for all your lies. He grabbed my arm roughly, pulling me close. You'll pay for this, Vivian. Mark my words. I pulled away, unfazed. We'll see about that. The days following the reading were a whirlwind of activity. Jordan's bitterness became a constant background noise, his threats growing more frantic as he realized how little control he had over the situation. One night, as I prepared dinner, the front door burst open. Jordan stumbled in, eyes wild. Where are the documents? He demanded, his voice slurred. What documents? I asked calmly, pretending not to know. The ones giving you control of the estate, he shouted, tearing through drawers and cabinets. Leave now, Jordan, I said, standing my ground. You're scaring Lila. From behind me, Lila's small voice trembled. Mommy, what's going on? I edged her away from the chaos, whispering, Go to your room, sweetheart. It'll be okay. Jordan lunged for the desk, papers flying. You can't hide them from me. I stepped in front of him, firm. Stop this, Jordan. You're not taking anything. He shoved me aside, but then there was a knock at the door. Jordan paused, confusion creasing his brow. I answered it, revealing 2 police officers. Mrs. Simmons? One asked. We had a report of a disturbance. This man broke into my home, I said firmly. He's not welcome here. The officers turned to Jordan, who looked bewildered. You can't do this, he yelled as they cuffed him. Vivian, help me! I watched as the police led him away. "This ends now, Jordan," I said quietly. With the house finally calm, I hugged Lila tight, offering her the reassurance Jordan never could. That night, I wrote another blog post, detailing the events without fear. The flood of supportive messages was overwhelming. I could sense the end of our battle drawing near. Jordan had lost his grip. It was my time to rebuild, not just for me, but for Lila. With each passing day, I felt stronger. Jordan's reign was over, and a new chapter was beginning for us. Jordan's arrest was the turning point, but I knew it wasn't over. He'd be released soon, and the threat still loomed. I needed to act fast. The next day, I met with my lawyer, Mrs. Whitman, in her office. "Vivian," she said as I sat down, "we need to finalize the restraining order." I nodded. "Yes, whatever it takes to keep him away from us." Mrs. Whitman looked at me earnestly. "I've seen cases like this. Be prepared for anything." Back home, I fortified our security. New locks were installed and an alarm system activated. Lila sensed the change but was brave. I tried to keep things normal, but the tension was palpable. One evening, while I was cooking dinner, the phone rang. It was a number I didn't recognize. I answered cautiously. "Hello?" "It's me." Jordan's voice crackled through the line. I hung up immediately, my heart racing. Moments later, the phone rang again. I didn't answer. Minutes later, there was a loud bang on the door. "Vivian," Jordan's voice called out, dripping with venom. "Mommy?" Lila stood at the top of the stairs, fear in her eyes. "Go to your room and lock the door, sweetheart." I grabbed my phone, dialing 911. "He's here," I whispered urgently. "Please send help." Jordan's pounding grew more aggressive. "Open this door, Vivian. You can't hide forever." I stayed calm, listening to the dispatcher's instructions. "The police are on their way," she said. "Stay where you are." The minutes dragged by as Jordan's threats escalated. "You think a restraining order can keep me away? I'll break down this door if I have to." Finally, the flashing blue lights appeared outside. Jordan was still ranting when the police arrived. "Step away from the door," one officer commanded. Jordan turned, defiant. "This is my house. You can't do this." The officer remained firm. "You're violating a restraining order. Step away now." Jordan's bravado crumbled as the officers advanced. They cuffed him, his protests growing weaker with every step. "You can't keep me from my own home." The police led him away, his shouts fading into the night. I collapsed on the couch, exhausted but relieved. A knock on the door pulled me back. It was Officer Reyes, who had been handling our case. "He won't be bothering you anymore," he assured. "Thank you," I said, gratitude washing over me. After the chaos, silence settled. I went to Lila's room, finding her curled up on her bed, clutching her favorite stuffed animal. "Is he gone, Mommy?" I hugged her tight. "Yes, sweetheart, he's gone." In the weeks that followed, I allowed myself to breathe, to start envisioning a life beyond fear. My blog turned into a platform of empowerment, my followers rallying behind me. One day, an email from a publisher named Ruth popped into my inbox. "Vivian, your story is powerful. We'd love to discuss turning your blog into a book." I was stunned but excited. This could be the start of something new, I told Lila, feeling hope blossom. Meetings with Ruth were productive. "Your voice speaks to so many," she said. "This book could help countless others." With each passing day, my sense of purpose grew. The manuscript took shape, my experiences transforming into a narrative of resilience and strength. Months later, the book was published. The launch event was surreal, filled with supporters. I stood before them, speaking with confidence I never knew I had. Our past doesn't define us. We have the power to rewrite our future. Back home, I found Lila asleep, clutching my newly published book. Tears welled up as I watched her peaceful face. The nightmare was over, and we were finally free. I reflected on the journey, feeling a profound sense of accomplishment. "We've made it, Lila," I whispered. "We're free, and nothing can hold us back now." I stood on the porch, looking out at the gleaming white house and the sprawling yard that surrounded it. This was supposed to be my dream home. I glanced back as Mark's truck pulled into the driveway, the gravel crunching under the tires. Mark stepped out, followed closely by Dave and Christine. My heart sank. Mark walked up, adjusting his jacket with a smirk. "This house isn't for you, Julia. It's for Dave and Christine, and their baby." I felt my pulse quicken. "What are you talking about?" Dave crossed his arms, avoiding eye contact. "Mom, don't make a scene. You'll embarrass yourself." I couldn't help but clench my fists. "If you think you can force me out, think again. I'll leave on my terms." Mark's face tightened and his smile vanished. You leave, and you'll have nothing. My mind raced back to the beginning, the early years when Mark and I were happy. We were young and full of dreams. But things changed after I quit my job to raise Dave. Mark grew cold and distant. He would spend hours at work and come home late, often without a word of explanation. Dave picked up on Mark's behavior early on. He turned from the sweet boy I once knew into a rebellious teenager. Any time I tried to discipline him, Mark would swoop in and undermine me. I was painted as the villain while they stuck together, creating an unmanageable tension in our home. Then there was Dave's marriage to Christine. At first, I was hopeful. Maybe a new member in the family would bring us closer. But Christine was manipulative, and it didn't take long for her to show her true colors. Keep your voice down. Neighbors are watching, Christine hissed, glancing around nervously. I stepped closer to Mark, my voice low. I've worked day and night to save for this house. You can't just give it away. Mark chuckled bitterly. I can, and I have. Dave and Christine need a place to start their family. You should understand that. And where does that leave me? Christine piped in, her voice dripping with false sweetness. You can always find another place, Julia. It's not the end of the world. I bit back a retort, knowing it wouldn't do any good. Instead, I turned and walked back toward the house, feeling their eyes bore into my back. Memories of the nights spent planning for this house swirled in my mind. Every penny I earned from my freelance work went into this place. I had sacrificed so much. Behind my back, Mark diverted funds, taking what rightfully belonged to me for Dave and Christine. My labor had turned into their gain. Back outside, Mark was handing Dave the keys. Take good care of the place, son, he said, patting him on the back. Dave smiled weakly. Thanks, Dad, we will. I walked up to them, taking a deep breath to steady myself. Enjoy it while you can, Dave. I'm not done fighting for what's mine. Mark snorted. You're outnumbered, Julia. Give it up. I met his gaze levelly. You've underestimated me, Mark. Big mistake. Ignoring their skeptical looks, I walked back to my car. My fingers trembled as I turned the key in the ignition. The engine roared to life, and I drove away, my mind already plotting my next move. I was at a tipping point, but I wasn't broken. If they thought they could strip me of everything and leave me defeated, they were sorely mistaken. I had my own plans, and I wasn't going down without a fight. Weeks after the debacle at the new house, I found solace in old photo albums. Flipping through the pages, I smiled at a picture of me and Mark on our wedding day. We looked so happy. He held my hand, and we both seemed ready to take on the world together. Back then, everything was different. Mark was my rock, always there with a smile and encouraging words. When I became pregnant with Dave, we were thrilled. I decided to quit my job to raise our son, believing it was the best for our family. Mark was supportive, assuring me he'd handle the finances. But over the years, Mark changed. He started to come home later, often with an excuse or a distant look in his eyes. One evening, as he walked in smelling like stale beer, I confronted him. Mark, what's going on? You're never home anymore. He avoided my gaze, kicking off his shoes. Work's been tough, Julia. I'm doing my best. I sighed, feeling a knot form in my stomach. We're a team, remember? You can talk to me. He just shook his head. Let it go, Julia. There's nothing to talk about. Those nights became more frequent, and our conversations grew colder. Even in our moments of silence, the distance between us was deafening. The warmth of our home slowly faded, replaced by an unbearable cold. And then there was Dave. As he grew older, it became evident he was picking up traits from his father. He was rebellious, often challenging my authority. I tried to discipline him, but Mark would always take Dave's side. One afternoon, I caught Dave sneaking out of the back door. Dave, where do you think you're going? He turned, rolling his eyes. Out. Why do you care? Because you're my son, and as long as you live under this roof, you follow the rules. He scoffed, slamming the door behind him. Minutes later, Mark confronted me. You need to back off, Julia. Let him be a teenager. I shook my head in disbelief. By letting him run wild? That's not parenting, Mark. He stepped closer, his voice a low growl. You're overreacting as usual. He's my son too, and I won't have you suffocating him. I clenched my fists, feeling powerless. I'm trying to raise him right. We both should be. Mark snorted, turning away. Just let it go, Julia. The strain between us deepened over the years, creating a divide that seemed impossible to bridge. When Dave brought Christine home, it added another layer to the tension. Initially, I was hopeful, but Christine's manipulative nature soon became apparent. Whenever I tried to bond with her, she would dismiss me with a fake smile. "Oh, Julia, you don't understand. It's different for our generation." I reached out to Mark, hoping to find some common ground. "Mark, can't you see what's happening? Christine is driving a wedge between us," he shrugged, indifferent. "You're imagining things, Julia." I was left to fight alone against the growing wall of deceit and betrayal. Even as I saved every penny for a new house, I didn't realize Mark had already decided to hand it over to Dave and Christine. Now, sitting alone with those photo albums, the memories of happier times were bitter. But I knew I wasn't the same woman from those pictures. If they expected me to roll over and accept this betrayal, they were wrong. I closed the album, determination burning in my chest. The game wasn't over, and I was ready to play by my rules. They had turned my life upside down, but I would find a way to reclaim it, no matter what. Dave brought Christine over one evening, announcing their engagement. Mark beamed with pride, but I couldn't help feeling a sense of foreboding. Mark stood with his arm around Dave, his voice dripping with enthusiasm. "Julia, isn't this great? Our son's getting married," I forced a smile. "Congratulations, Christine. Welcome to the family." Christine's grin was anything but sincere. "Thank you, Julia. We're really excited." After the engagement, our household's dynamics shifted. Christine moved in temporarily, turning our home into a battleground. Every decision I made, she countered with her own. One evening, I prepared dinner, hoping for some peace. Christine sauntered into the kitchen, glancing at the stove. "Oh, is this what we're having? Dave likes his steak well done." I stiffened. "I've been cooking for my family for years. I know how he likes it." Christine smirked. "Just trying to help." Mark walked in, hearing the tail end of our exchange. "What's the problem here?" Christine pouted. "Nothing, Dad. We were just talking about dinner." I shot a glare at Christine. "She's questioning my cooking, Mark." Mark sighed as if weary of the conflict. "Julia, why don't you let Christine cook for once?" I slammed the spatula down. "Fine. Have it your way." I retreated to my office, fury bubbling under my skin. As I sat at my desk, I stared at the plans for the new house. It was supposed to be a fresh start away from all this tension. Working from home had become my escape, but even that now felt tainted. For months, I poured my time and effort into saving enough for the new house. Little did I know, Mark had been funneling the money to Dave and Christine behind my back. Every penny I earned was a step toward their dream, not mine. One night, I overheard a conversation between Mark and Christine. Unable to resist, I leaned closer to the door. Christine's voice was hushed but clear. "Are you sure she won't find out?" Mark sounded confident. "Julia's clueless. She thinks all that money's going to our retirement fund." Christine laughed softly. "Good. We need that house more than she does." My heart pounded in my chest. Betrayed, I pushed the door open. "So this has been your plan all along?" Mark and Christine turned, shock written on their faces. Mark quickly masked his surprise. "Julia, don't jump to conclusions." I stepped into the room, seething. "What conclusions should I draw, Mark? That you've been stealing from me for them?" Christine crossed her arms, looking unfazed. "It's not stealing if it's for the family." I glared at her, my voice trembling with anger. "This isn't your family. It's my money, my hard work." Mark tried to take control. "Julia, calm down. You're overreacting." I jabbed a finger at him. "Don't you dare tell me to calm down. I've sacrificed everything for this family, and this is how you repay me." Dave walked in, clueless as always. "What's going on?" Mark sighed. "Nothing you need to worry about, son." I looked at Dave, my voice broken. "Your father's been using me to fund your new life with Christine." Dave looked puzzled. "But Dad said—" "Dad lied," I cut in, my eyes never leaving Mark's. Mark's face darkened. "Julia, if you don't like it, leave. But remember, you walk out, you get nothing." I swallowed hard, my resolve solidifying. "We'll see about that." I turned and left the room, driven by a newfound determination. I wouldn't let them win. This betrayal was the last straw, and now it was time for me to fight back. The day of the move arrived, and the house buzzed with activity. Boxes were everywhere, and movers shuffled back and forth, carrying furniture and other belongings. It should have been a joyous day, but a storm brewed in my chest. I stepped outside to get some air and almost ran into Christine. She smirked, her arms folded across her chest. Ready to watch us move into our new home, Julia? I clenched my jaw. Enjoy it while you can, Christine. This isn't over, she laughed lightly. You don't get it, do you? You've already lost. Turning away from her, I saw Mark directing the movers. His authoritative tone grated on me, fueling my anger. Put that in the master bedroom. Be careful with the TV, he ordered. I marched up, my voice cutting through the commotion. I hope you're enjoying your little power trip, Mark. He looked at me like I was an inconvenience. Why are you still here, Julia? Can't you make this easier for everyone? I stared at him, unwavering. Easier for you, you mean. I'm not walking away from what's rightfully mine. Dave appeared, holding Christine's hand. He glanced at me with an annoyed expression. Mom, please, you're making a scene. I stepped closer to Dave, my voice low but firm. You'll understand when you have children of your own, Dave. One day you'll know what it's like to be betrayed by the people you trust the most. His eyes darted away, avoiding my gaze. Whatever, Mom. Just know it doesn't have to be this way. Christine squeezed his hand, stepping in. Actually, it does, Dave. Julia's forgotten her place. I turned to her, my eyes narrowing. And you've overstepped yours, Christine. Before she could retort, I walked back into the house and up to my office. I grabbed a small recorder I had prepared weeks ago, then returned to the living room where everyone had gathered. Mark, I called out, holding up the device. I've recorded everything. Every lie, every betrayal. He scoffed. Your empty threats don't scare anyone, Julia. I shook my head, clicking the play button. Mark's voice filled the room, caught on tape from his conversations with Christine. The color drained from his face. You're bluffing, he said, but his voice wavered. I turned to Dave. You're involved too, Dave. Do you really want Christine to hear what you said about her when she's not around? Dave's face paled. What are you talking about? Mom, Christine sneered. You're desperately clinging to your pathetic delusions. I looked at her coldly. I'm not delusional, Christine. I'm prepared. I directed my gaze at Mark. I've gathered enough to ruin you. That's that you and your golden boy. Mark's facade cracked, revealing a hint of fear. You wouldn't dare. I inched closer. Try me. Finally, Mark's stern expression wavered. He turned to the movers. Stop. Take a break. He looked at me, his voice strained. What do you want, Julia? I took a deep breath, feeling a glimmer of power. First, I want my share of everything. Second, I want you out of my life. Dave stepped forward. But you can't do that, Mom. This is our home now. I faced him with resolve. You'll have to fight for it then, Dave, because I'm not backing down. Christine interjected, her voice dripping with contempt. Then we'll fight. I looked around the room. This house meant to be my sanctuary, but turned into a battleground. So be it. The movers stood awkwardly, sensing the tension. Mark rubbed his temples. Julia, you don't understand. No, Mark, I interrupted. You don't understand. This ends now. I walked out of the house, feeling the weight lift off my shoulders. They had underestimated me for the last time. Now it was my turn to flip the script, and I planned to do it with every bit of strength I had left. Packed bags lined the hallway of our old house, filled with memories and broken dreams. As I zipped up the last suitcase, Mark entered the room. His expression was a mix of anger and disbelief. I can't believe you're really doing this, Julia, he said, shaking his head. I met his gaze, unwavering. And I can't believe you thought you could keep betraying me without consequences. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. You're going to regret this, you know that, right? I took a deep breath, defying his intimidation. The only regret I have is not doing this sooner. Dave and Christine were hovering nearby, whispering among themselves. I turned to them, my voice firm. I'm filing for divorce, and I'm taking everything I'm entitled to. Christine sneered. You think you're going to get anything? You're delusional, Julia. Ignoring her, I looked at Dave. I hope you realize this isn't just about the house. It's about you and your father thinking you can walk all over me. Dave shook his head in frustration. Mom, please, let's just talk this out. No, I said firmly. Talking stopped working years ago. The next few days were a blur of legal papers and uncomfortable conversations. My lawyer, a sharp woman named Linda, assured me I had a strong case. She examined the documents I had gathered over the years, eyes narrowing as she read through the evidence of financial manipulation and neglect. This is pretty damning, she said with a nod. We have a solid argument for emotional distress and financial abuse. I felt a pang of relief. Thank you, Linda. I need to ensure they don't walk away unscathed. Don't worry, Julia, she assured me. We'll make sure justice is served. A few weeks later, I recorded a conversation between Mark and Dave, capturing their casual confessions of deception. Mark laughed as he spoke. Julia thought she could take me down. She has no idea what she's up against. Dave snickered. She's always been too emotional, easy to control. I clenched my teeth, feeling a tide of determination rise within me. This was the final piece of the puzzle. I knew I had them cornered. The day I moved out, I felt a strange mix of sadness and empowerment. I loaded the last of my boxes into my car, standing back to take a final look at the house I had once believed would be my haven. Mark, Dave, and Christine watched from the porch, their faces a blend of anger and disbelief. Mark called out as I shut the car door. You'll regret this, Julia. You don't know what you're doing. I started the engine, looking at them one last time. No, Mark, you don't know what I'm capable of. Driving away, I felt like a weight had been lifted off my shoulders. I headed straight for my brother Alex's house, my temporary refuge. Alex welcomed me with open arms, his embrace providing a comfort I sorely needed. Julia, you've got this, Alex said, his voice filled with confidence. We'll get through this together. I smiled, feeling a flicker of hope. Thanks, Alex. I needed to hear that. Over the next few days, I settled into Alex's home. It was a safe space, free from the toxic environment that had suffocated me for so long. I began consulting with Linda more frequently, preparing our case and ensuring every detail was airtight. The night before our first court appearance, Linda called me. We're ready, Julia. Get some rest. Tomorrow is the beginning of your new life. I hung up, lying back on the bed. For the first time in years, I felt a sense of peace wash over me. This was my chance to reclaim my life, and I wasn't going to let anything stand in my way. Living with Alex felt like stepping into a different world, one where I could finally breathe. His house, though modest, radiated warmth and security. We spent evenings on the porch, watching the sunset and talking about anything but the mess I had left behind. One evening, Alex handed me a coffee mug, his eyes studying me closely. How are you holding up? I took a sip, the warmth calming my nerves. Better now. It's strange, though. Feels like I'm finally waking up, he nodded. Good. You deserve peace. News of Mark and Dave's financial struggles trickled in. I heard from mutual friends that their business was faltering. Mark's reputation took a hit as word of our legal battle spread. One afternoon, Mark called, his voice frantic. Julia, you need to stop this. Our finances are collapsing. We could lose everything. I remained calm. And what makes you think you deserve my help after everything you've done? He sighed heavily. We're in this mess because of you. Because of me? I laughed bitterly. You turned our lives upside down, Mark. Now you're facing the consequences. Julia, please, he pleaded. Think of Dave and Christine. They're suffering too. I didn't waver. Maybe they should have thought about that before betraying me. He hung up, and I felt a strange mixture of satisfaction and sadness. This was the life they had carved out, and now they had to live with it. I spent more time working on freelance projects, finding solace in the distraction. One evening, Alex found me typing away in the dim light of my makeshift office. You're working too hard, he teased, leaning against the doorframe. I smiled, not looking up from the screen. It's better than dwelling on the past. He walked over and ruffled my hair playfully. You've always been a fighter, sis. Don't forget that. Mark's desperation grew over the following weeks. He called more frequently, each time sounding more defeated than the last. Julia, we're going to lose the house, he said during one call. Everything is falling apart. I took a deep breath, keeping my voice steady. You made your choices, Mark. Now deal with the consequences. The night before our final court date, I sat with Linda, going over our plan. She looked up, her eyes filled with determination. We have a strong case. Tomorrow, we'll set everything right. I nodded, trying to calm my racing heart. Thank you, Linda. I never thought I'd get this far. We're not just fighting for a legal victory, she said. We're fighting for your freedom. The following day, I walked into the courtroom with my head held high. Mark and Dave were already there, sitting with their lawyer. When their eyes met mine, I saw a mix of anger and defeat. Linda presented our case with precision, laying out the years of manipulation and betrayal. The judge listened intently, nodding occasionally. When I took the stand, I recounted the sacrifices I had made, the trust I had placed in Mark, and the heartbreak that followed. Mark's lawyer tried to paint me as vindictive, but the evidence spoke for itself. As the session drew to a close, the judge addressed the room, eyes stern. Having reviewed the evidence, it is clear that Mrs. Baxter has been wronged. The court rules in her favor, awarding her the compensation and assets she is entitled to. A wave of relief washed over me. Mark slumped in his chair, defeat etched on his face. Dave looked stunned, unable to process what had just happened. As I walked out of the courtroom, Linda by my side, I felt a newfound sense of freedom. I was no longer bound by the chains of betrayal and manipulation. I could finally move forward, leaving the past where it belonged. Alex was waiting outside, his smile wide and welcoming. He hugged me tightly. "You did it, Julia. You're free." I smiled, tears of relief streaming down my face. "Yes, I am. Finally." The court ruling marked the beginning of a new chapter in my life. The sense of relief and empowerment I felt was palpable, but I knew there were still battles to fight. My next step was to secure my future and protect myself from any more deceit. Linda and I met to discuss the legal retaliation. We filed for emotional distress, presenting clear evidence of Mark's betrayal and manipulation. As we compiled the case, more details about their financial manipulations came to light. The depth of their deceit was staggering. Linda looked up from her notes, a determined glint in her eye. "We have everything we need to make them pay, Julia. This will not go unnoticed." I nodded, feeling a sense of kinship with her. "Let's do it." As the news of our legal actions spread, Mark's world began to crumble. His professional life, once so secure, faced serious repercussions. His boss called him into the office, the tension in the air thick. "Mark, we've received some disturbing news about your personal and financial conduct," his boss said, sliding a file across the desk. "We cannot ignore this." Mark's face turned pale. "But I can explain." His boss cut him off. "There's nothing to explain. Your actions have brought disgrace to this company. Consider this your last day." Dave and Christine weren't spared either. The stress of their financial turmoil took its toll on their marriage. One day, as they argued in the living room, their words echoed throughout the house. "This is all your fault, Dave," Christine yelled, her face twisted with anger. "You should have handled things better." Dave threw his hands in the air. "My fault? You were just as complicit in all of this." Their arguments grew more frequent and intense, revealing the shallow foundation of their relationship. It didn't take long for their marriage to start unraveling. My betrayal had set off a chain reaction that neither of them could control. Meanwhile, my own life began to stabilize. Work was fulfilling, and I felt a renewed sense of purpose. Evenings spent with Alex were filled with laughter and companionship, a stark contrast to the tension that had once filled my days. One evening, as we sat on the porch, Alex handed me a letter. "This came for you today." I opened it, scanning the contents quickly. A smile spread across my face. "It's from Linda. Mark and Dave have been officially served." Alex grinned. "Karma's catching up to them, huh?" "It sure is," I replied, feeling a weight lift from my shoulders. Mark's desperate calls began anew, but this time I felt no obligation to respond. One particularly frantic message caught my attention. "Julia, we need to talk. Please, I'm begging you. We're losing everything. Help us." I called him back, my voice firm. "Mark, you made your bed. Now lie in it." He tried to plead. "We're in ruins, Julia. How can you be so heartless?" My tone didn't waver. "Heartless after everything you put me through? This is justice, Mark." His silence spoke volumes before he eventually hung up. I wasn't vindictive. I was empowered. I was finally able to stand up for myself and reclaim my life. Watching Mark and Dave face the consequences of their actions was bittersweet. Part of me felt for Dave, lost in his father's toxic shadow. But another part knew that their downfall was a necessary step for my healing. As Mark's professional life disintegrated, and Dave and Christine's marriage continued to crumble, I found myself rising stronger than ever. The support from Alex and my self-belief became my foundation. One night, as I lay in bed, I felt a sense of peace settle over me. Their actions had hurt me deeply, but they had also inadvertently pushed me to discover my inner strength. And that was something neither Mark, Dave, nor Christine could ever take away. Renovating Alex's house became my new project, a way to channel my energy and focus on the future. We painted walls, refurbished old furniture, and added personal touches that made the space feel like home. Each stroke of the brush felt like a step away from the past and towards a brighter, more independent future. One Saturday morning, as we worked side by side, Alex turned to me, a smile playing on his lips. "The place is looking great, Julia. You've done wonders." I smiled back, a sense of accomplishment filling me. "It's starting to feel like home." As we wrapped up for the day, I glanced at my phone. A message from Linda. I opened it and read, "Mark tried to countersue but failed. The court upheld the decision in your favor." I showed Alex the message, and he laughed. Good. They got what they deserved. Life began to take on a new rhythm. I focused on my writing career, gaining confidence with each project. The quiet evenings at Alex's house were a balm to my once frayed nerves. We often talked late into the night, reflecting on how far we'd come. One evening, after finishing a particularly demanding assignment, I sat on the porch, sipping tea. Alex joined me, a look of contentment on his face. "You've rebuilt your life, sis. I'm proud of you," he said, his voice filled with warmth. I nodded, feeling a deep sense of gratitude. "I couldn't have done it without you, Alex." As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting the sky in hues of orange and pink, I felt a surprising sense of closure. The battles had been hard fought, but they had led me to a place of peace and self-assuredness. A few days later, I received a call from an old friend who had heard about the turmoil and my subsequent victory. "Julia, I just wanted to say how inspired I am by your courage. You truly deserve this new beginning," she said. I thanked her, realizing that the support and recognition from those around me were part of my healing process. It wasn't just about winning, it was about reclaiming my sense of self-worth. As the legal dust settled, Mark and Dave's lives continued to unravel. Mark's demotion led to a series of financial difficulties that he could no longer hide from. Dave and Christine's relationship hit rock bottom. One day I received a message from Dave. It was short but heartfelt. "I'm sorry, Mom. I realize now how wrong we were. I hope someday you can forgive me." I didn't reply right away. Forgiveness wasn't something I could offer just yet, but acknowledging his apology was a step forward. My career flourished. I took on more significant projects and received recognition for my work. One evening, as I prepared to submit a well-researched piece, Alex entered my office, holding a framed photo from years ago. A younger, hopeful me, alongside Mark and Dave. He set it on my desk gently. "Remember where you started," he said softly, "but never forget how far you've come." I looked at the photo, a mix of nostalgia and newfound strength washing over me. Tears welled up, but they were tears of release, not sorrow. As days turned into weeks, the changes in my life became evident. The house was alive with sounds of laughter and shared meals. Evenings were no longer filled with tension, but with stories and dreams of the future. Alex and I planned trips, talked about renovating more of the house, and even discussed my potential move into a place of my own once the time felt right. One night, as I lay in bed, my phone buzzed with a notification. It was a message from Linda, celebrating your strength and courage today, a toast to new beginnings. Attached was a photo of a wine glass raised in cheer. I smiled, feeling an overwhelming sense of accomplishment. I had faced betrayal, deceit, and heartbreak, but I had emerged stronger and more determined. My journey was a testament to resilience and self-discovery. As I drifted off to sleep, I knew that the future held endless possibilities. I had reclaimed my life, and I was ready to embrace whatever came next with open arms. The air was thick with tension at the community center, where Frank Carter's funeral was being held. People shuffled about, exchanging quiet condolences, but my mind was elsewhere. As Henry stood by my side, supporting me, I noticed Laura approaching us, her eyes burning with disdain. "We don't need you here. You're just a stranger in this family." Laura spat, loud enough for everyone to hear, her voice slicing through the low hum of conversations. Heads turned, whispers started. I felt a cold sweat spread along my back, but I steadied myself. "Laura, please," Henry interjected softly, trying to de-escalate. "This isn't the time." Laura turned on him, her expression a twist of anger and what seemed like satisfaction. "Oh, so now you speak up. Where was this spine when your father was alive?" Henry squeezed my hand, a pained look flashing in his eyes. But before he could reply, Laura turned back to me. "You've always thought you could replace me, haven't you? Took everything from me and now you show up here. How dare you?" I took a deep breath, forcing myself to remain calm, even though her words felt like daggers. "Laura, we are here to honor Frank. To say goodbye, not to fight." She laughed, a harsh, grating sound. "Honor? You wouldn't know the meaning of the word." At that moment, Samantha, my best friend, stepped in. "Laura, this isn't the place for this. We're here to mourn, not to argue." Laura's eyes flicked over Samantha dismissively. "Stay out of this, Samantha. This is family business." Samantha didn't back down. "Emma is family," she said firmly, her voice a shield around me. Henry finally found his voice. "Mom, Emma is my wife. She's family. Dad would be heartbroken to see us fighting like this." Laura's face contorted in anger. "Don't you dare speak about your father. What would he think of this circus you're dragging through his memory?" Before I could respond, a frail voice called out from behind us. "Enough!" It was Dr. Emily Harris, Frank's doctor. She stepped forward, her expression one of firm resolve. "Today is about Frank. Let's remember him with the dignity he deserves." Laura glared at her, but the moment of power had passed. The crowd began to murmur in agreement. Dr. Harris gave me a sympathetic nod before turning back to Laura. "Please, let's not spoil this for everyone." As Laura stepped back, the storm in her eyes dimming a bit, I felt the weight of the confrontation lifting. Henry's hand remained in mine, his grip solid and unwavering. Together, we turned and approached Frank's photo at the head of the room, placing flowers down as a final gesture of farewell. All around us, people resumed their hushed conversations, leaving the confrontation behind. But I knew this was just the beginning. Laura's venom wasn't new, nor did I expect it to vanish. Today had been a curtain pulled back, revealing the depth of the strife that lay ahead. As I looked up at Henry, our silent understanding affirmed our unity against the brewing storm. The echoes of Laura's rage faded, replaced by the steady hum of support from those who knew the real stakes. In that moment, despite the turmoil, I felt a spark of determination ignited. I knew what we stood for and who we were, ready to face what came next, side by side. A few months earlier, life seemed simpler. Henry and I had just settled into our small, cozy home on the outskirts of town. We enjoyed a peaceful routine that kept us both in high spirits. Every Saturday morning, we'd browse the farmer's market, picking out fresh vegetables and chatting with the locals. Henry's phone buzzed one evening, breaking our tranquil routine. He glanced at the screen and sighed. "It's Mom," he said, weariness already creeping into his voice. He answered, and her voice carried through the phone loud enough for me to hear. "Henry, you never call anymore. Are you too busy for your own mother now?" I watched Henry, feeling a pang of sympathy. His shoulders tensed as he tried to remain gentle. "Mom, we just spoke a couple of days ago. What's going on?" Laura sighed dramatically. "Your father's been insufferable. I think he's lost his mind. Can't you come over and convince him to behave?" Henry gritted his teeth. "I'll talk to him, Mom, but it sounds like you need to speak to a counselor or something." She laughed bitterly. "Of course, the moment I need you, you suggest therapy. Nice, Henry. I'll let you get back to your perfect little life." As Henry hung up, I put a hand on his shoulder. "Everything okay?" He shook his head. "It never is with her." Days turned into weeks, and the calls became more frequent and acerbic. It felt like a storm was gathering. One evening, there was a knock on our door. Henry opened it to find Frank standing there. His usually sturdy frame seemed frail, his eyes carrying years of silent suffering. "Frank, come in," I said, guiding him to the couch. "Would you like some tea?" Frank nodded, his voice barely a whisper. "Thank you, Emma." Henry sat beside him, a worry etched across his face. "Dad, what's going on? Why are you here?" Frank took a deep breath, then spoke with a trembling voice. "I can't take her abuse anymore. Please come live with us, or I'm leaving her." Henry and I exchanged stunned looks. The man we saw as strong and unyielding was breaking in front of us. We sat in silence for a moment, the weight of his plea hanging heavy in the air. Finally, I spoke up. "Frank, we'll help you. We'll move in." Henry looked at me with a mixture of relief and sadness. "We'll be there, Dad. We won't let you suffer alone." The decision was made. The next few days were a whirlwind of packing and planning. Each box sealed felt like a step closer to a life fraught with turmoil. I watched Henry as he carefully packed, his determination clear, even if unspoken. I knew this was going to be hard, but in every action I saw the resolve to make things right for Frank. As we closed the door to our small home one last time, a sense of foreboding settled in. I tightened my grip on Henry's hand. Together we were stepping into a new chapter, one where bonds would be tested and shadows of the past would loom large. Yet with every step, our unity grew stronger. Ready or not, we were heading into the storm. The early days of living under Laura's roof felt like stepping into a minefield. The moment we walked through the door, Laura's eyes skimmed over our bags as if tallying up inconveniences. "So, it's true, you're really moving in," she said, her tone dripping with disdain. Henry forced a smile, trying to ease the tension. "We want to help, Mom. It'll be easier this way." Laura scoffed. "Help? All I see is you bringing your mess into my home." Frank looked down, his shoulders hunched as if bracing for more verbal blows. I knew we had to make this work, for his sake. Days turned into weeks, and every morning brought a new challenge. Laura's antagonism was relentless. She'd comment on everything from the way I cooked to how I cleaned. "I see you've never heard of a dust rag," she said one morning, her lips curled in a bitter smile. I bit back my retort, focusing on making breakfast. Henry came in, sensing the tension. "Morning, Mom. Everything okay?" Laura didn't miss a beat. "Just wondering why you married someone who can't even maintain a home properly." Henry took a deep breath. "Emma's doing her best, Mom. We're all adjusting." Laura rolled her eyes and muttered something under her breath that I couldn't quite catch, but I didn't need to. The message was clear. In the evenings, the real challenge began. Laura became obsessed with keeping Henry close, often calling him into the living room for trivial tasks or pointless conversations. Frank and I could only watch, feeling the manipulation wrap tighter around him. One evening, as Henry helped with dinner, Laura called out from the living room, "Henry, come here. I need you to move the sofa." Henry sighed, giving me an apologetic look. "I'll be right back." I continued chopping vegetables, hearing their muffled voices from the other room. Frank sat at the kitchen table, the wariness of years etched into his face. "I'm sorry you have to deal with this, Emma." I placed a hand on his. "We're family, Frank. We'll get through it." But it wasn't just the belittling and manipulation. Frank's silent suffering was becoming more evident. One night, as we all sat in the living room, Laura's barbs grew sharper. "Maybe if you'd been more of a man, Frank, we wouldn't be in this mess." He flinched but stayed silent. Something in me snapped. "That's enough, Laura. You don't get to speak to him like that." She turned on me, eyes blazing. "How dare you? This is my house, and I'll say whatever I please." Henry stepped between us. "Mom, stop. Emma's right. You've crossed the line." Laura's eyes narrowed, and for a moment, the room was filled with a dangerous silence. "You think you can stop me? This is far from over." The silence that followed was thick with unspoken threats. As we retreated to our room that night, I knew we were in a battle of wills, and Laura had no intention of losing. Each interaction left us more resolute. We were ready to fight for our peace and for Frank's dignity, no matter what it took. The house was a battleground, but within our unit we grew stronger each day. The storm finally hit one afternoon. I was in the kitchen making lunch when I heard a crash followed by Frank's pained groan. I rushed to the living room, heart pounding. "Frank!" I cried. He was collapsed on the floor, one hand clutching his chest. "Oh my God." Laura stood nearby, her face a mask of indifference. "He's been like this for a while. He's just seeking attention." I shot her a look of disbelief. "Did you call 911? She shrugged, glancing at her nails. "I thought he was faking it." I quickly grabbed the phone and dialed 911, my hands shaking. Henry burst into the room, eyes wide with panic. "What happened?" "He's having a stroke, I think. Laura didn't call for help." Henry's face went pale with anger. "Mom, what's wrong with you?" Laura didn't flinch. "Oh, quit being dramatic. He'll be fine." The paramedics arrived and swiftly took over. They loaded Frank onto a stretcher, and Henry went with them to the hospital, leaving me to deal with Laura. She watched them leave, an odd mix of relief and irritation on her face. "He should have taken better care of himself," she muttered. I clenched my fists, struggling to keep my voice steady. "This isn't his fault. You could have helped him." She rolled her eyes. "Please. He's always been weak." I turned away before I said something I regretted. The paramedics had assured me they would take good care of Frank, but the image of him lying on the floor haunted me. I followed Henry to the hospital after quick arrangements with Samantha to keep us updated at home. In the sterile hospital room, Dr. Emily Harris delivered the verdict. Frank had a major stroke. We also found late-stage cancer. Henry's hand tightened on mine. What can we do? Dr. Harris sighed. He needs full-time care, physical therapy, and lots of support. I met Henry's eyes, a silent decision forming between us. I'll do it. I'll take care of him. Henry looked at me, gratitude and sorrow blending in his gaze. Are you sure? Yes, he needs us. Back at home, Laura's hostility grew. She was completely uninvolved in Frank's care. I woke up early and worked all day, cleaning, cooking, and helping Frank with his exercises while Laura watched from a distance. One night, as I was administering Frank's medication, Laura entered, her eyes narrowed. You're wasting your time. He's not going to get better. I bristled but focused on Frank, who gave a weak smile. Thank you, Emma. Laura crossed her arms. You think this makes you a saint? It doesn't. You're just fooling yourself. Henry entered the room, hearing her words. Mom, if you can't be supportive, at least stay out of the way. His voice was firm, leaving no room for argument. Laura's eyes flashed with anger, but she turned on her heel and stormed out. That night, as I lay beside Henry, the weight of the day pressing down on me, I felt a renewed resolve. Laura's cruelty only fueled my determination to protect Frank. I knew we were in for a long, hard battle, but with each passing day, my resolve to ensure justice for Frank grew stronger. We were ready to fight, no matter the cost. Each day seemed longer than the last. My time was a blur of caregiving and housework. Henry tried to help whenever he could, but his job kept him away for long hours. It fell on me to handle the overwhelming majority of Frank's needs. One afternoon, I found Laura in the kitchen, pulling tissues out of the box one by one and tossing them on the counter. Why are you doing that? I asked, exasperation creeping into my voice. She smirked. Just making sure you're kept busy. Can't have you slacking off. I couldn't believe her pettiness. Laura, this is ridiculous. I have enough to do without your games. She stepped closer, her eyes narrowing. Oh, poor you. Playing the martyr doesn't suit you, Emma. I turned away, refusing to give her the satisfaction of a response. As I resumed my chores, my mind was racing. How could anyone be so cruel? After weeks of this constant battle, the pressure reached a boiling point. One evening, as I was helping Frank to bed, Laura stormed in. Why are you wasting your time on him? He should just die already and leave me everything. Instead, I'm stuck with you playing Florence Nightingale. I froze, the horror of her words hitting me hard. How can you say that? He's your husband. She crossed her arms, her expression hard as stone. He's a burden, and so are you. Henry arrived just in time to see my distress. Mom, that's enough. You have no right to speak like that. Laura laughed bitterly. You're so blind, Henry, always bending over backward for everyone but your own mother. Pathetic. Henry's face turned pale with anger. You've gone too far. If you can't be supportive, you need to stay away from us. Laura's eyes flashed with fury. You think you can get rid of me? I won't make it that easy. The room went silent. The only sound was Frank's labored breathing. As Laura stormed out, the weight of her words lingered. Henry took my hand, his grip firm. I'm so sorry, Emma. I didn't realize how bad she had become. I nodded, my resolve hardening. We need to protect Frank. We need to stop her. In the days that followed, things only got worse. Laura's sabotage turned from minor inconveniences to deliberate acts of cruelty. One morning I found Frank's medications missing. I searched frantically until I found them hidden in the trash. Laura, why would you do this? I demanded, holding up the medication bottles. She shrugged nonchalantly. Maybe I just forgot where I put them. Who knows? That was the final straw. I knew we needed proof of her actions if we had any chance of stopping her. I decided to install a small recording device in the living room, hoping to capture her cruelty. That evening, as Laura ranted about her disdain for Frank, the recorder picked up every vile word. Henry and I listened in silence later, our resolve steeling. We were ready to fight back. As Laura's true intentions became clearer, my anger fueled my determination. We were going to save Frank from her poison, and we were going to do it together. The battle lines were drawn, and there was no turning back. The tension in the house had reached breaking point. Each day, Laura's venom grew bolder, her attempts to undermine us more deliberate. I couldn't shake the feeling that something truly terrible was about to happen. One afternoon, while Henry was at work, I decided to record Laura's actions. I set up the device discreetly, praying it would give us the evidence we needed. As I moved to the living room, I heard her voice slithering through the hallway. "Are you so desperate for attention, Frank? You think anyone cares about your pitiful state?" I clenched my fists but stayed hidden, letting the recorder capture every word. Frank's weak reply nearly broke me. "Please, just stop." Laura laughed, a hollow, chilling sound. "I'll stop when you're gone. Maybe then I'll finally get some peace." Her words were poison, seeping into the air. I stood there, heart pounding, anger burning in my veins. But I had to stay quiet, had to let her incriminate herself. Later that evening, I shared the recording with Henry. His face turned white as he listened, his hands shaking. "I can't believe she said this, and to him." "We need more proof," I said firmly. "This isn't enough by itself." Determined, we started recording every interaction we could. Laura, oblivious to our plan, continued her tirades, unaware that each vile word was being documented. The evidence piled up, each recording a damning piece of the puzzle. Several nights later, as I tucked Frank into bed, something hidden among his belongings caught my eye, a small yellowed envelope worn with age. I opened it carefully, revealing signed, undated divorce papers. My breath caught in my throat. Frank had been planning an escape, his desperation evident in every shaky signature. Henry walked in just as I was reading them. "What's that?" he asked, peering over my shoulder. "Divorce papers," I whispered. He was going to leave her. Henry's face hardened. "This changes everything." The next day, Laura's cruelty escalated. She screamed at Frank for not finishing his food, her voice echoing through the house. "You think this is a hotel? I'm not your maid." Frank's frail figure trembled. "I'm sorry. I'm trying." That night, as we reviewed the recordings, something in Henry snapped. She's not going to get away with this. With solid evidence now in our hands, we knew it was time to confront her. The inevitable showdown loomed, casting a shadow over everything. But we were ready. The day of the funeral was chosen for the confrontation. Family and friends gathered, unaware of the storm that was about to unleash. As Laura put on her facade of grief, Henry and I exchanged a resolute nod. We approached her calmly but with purpose. "Mom, we need to talk," Henry said loudly, drawing everyone's attention. Laura's eyes flickered with confusion before narrowing. "Can't this wait?" "No," I said, my voice steady. "Everyone needs to hear this." As we revealed the recordings and the divorce papers, the room fell silent. Laura's mask of composure cracked, revealing the depths of her guilt and venom. The room erupted in gasps and whispers, her facade unraveling before our eyes. Henry's voice cut through the chaos. "You're not my mother anymore. You've done nothing but cause suffering." Laura's desperate cry echoed in the hall. "You're trying to take my inheritance." I stepped forward, holding up the papers. "You lost any claim when you treated him like this. You're already divorced." The community watched, judgmental eyes turning towards Laura, her lies exposed. In that moment, justice felt close at hand, our fight almost over. As the funeral drew to a close, one thing was clear. Laura's reign of cruelty was finally broken. Laura glared at us as the weight of the evidence crashed down on her. The whist from the crowd grew louder, eyes filled with shock and disgust focused on her. Henry held up the divorce papers for everyone to see. "You've lied to everyone. These papers prove that Frank had enough, and you dragged him through hell," he declared, his voice shaking with emotion. Laura's face twisted in horror, her control slipping. "This is a lie. This is all a setup to steal what's rightfully mine." I stepped forward, my gaze locked on hers. "You treated Frank with nothing but cruelty and neglect. It's over, Laura. Everyone knows the truth now." The room fell into an uneasy silence, every eye watching the confrontation. Then Henry's voice broke the tension. "You're not my mother anymore. Leave before you embarrass yourself further." Laura tried to laugh, but her voice cracked. "You can't get rid of me. I'll fight this. Henry cut her off. "There's nothing left to fight for." Frank made sure of that. Laura's composure shattered, and she lunged toward Henry. "You traitor! You think you can do this to me?" Henry stood his ground, unwavering. "You've done this to yourself." Just then, Samantha moved beside me, her voice a cool whisper in my ear. "It's time, Emma." I nodded. "Laura, it's over. You've lost." In a final act of desperation, Laura shrieked, "You're all against me. I was the one who sacrificed everything for this family." People began murmuring again, their judgment piercing through her defenses. She looked around, realizing her isolation. Without another word, she turned and stormed out of the hall, the weight of her disgrace trailing behind her. Once she was gone, the room remained tense, but there was also a sense of relief. The community had seen the truth. Henry clutched my hand tightly, his eyes reflecting a mix of sorrow and resolution. As the service concluded, people approached us with words of support and condolences. Despite the heavy atmosphere, there was a sense of unity against the wrongs that had been exposed. Later that evening, as we returned home, Henry and I sat in silence, absorbing the day's events. He finally broke it, his voice thick with emotion. "I never imagined it would end this way." I squeezed his hand. "We did the right thing, Henry. For Frank." He nodded, tears glistening in his eyes. "We did, and now we can finally move forward." The following days were a whirlwind of tying up loose ends. Laura's absence left an echo of tension, but also a growing sense of peace. The truth had set us free, and it was time to honor Frank's memory by living in a way that celebrated his life rather than mourning his loss. Henry and I made plans to start fresh, dedicating some of Frank's inheritance to charity work in his name. With each step, we reaffirmed our commitment to live with kindness and integrity, embracing the lessons learned through our trials. As we settled into our new home, away from the shadows of the past, we found solace in the simple joys of daily life. The journey had been harrowing, but it also had strengthened our bond. One evening, standing by Frank's grave, Henry spoke softly. "Goodbye, Dad. We'll carry your legacy forward." I joined him, my voice a quiet promise. "We promise to honor your memory every day." With that, we walked away, hand in hand, ready to embrace our new beginning, our hearts full of peace and the enduring love that would guide us forward. Henry and I moved into our new home, a modest but cozy bungalow on the edge of town. The past haunted me less and less each day, replaced by a growing sense of peace. The shadow Laura cast had finally lifted, allowing the light of healing to shine through. One evening, we sat on the porch, enjoying the cool breeze. "How are you feeling about everything?" Henry asked, his eyes searching mine. I took a deep breath. "We did what we had to. Frank's peace matters more than the havoc Laura caused." Henry nodded. "I can feel him here with us, you know? It's like he's finally at rest." We decided to dedicate a portion of Frank's inheritance to charity, focusing on causes that mattered to him. It felt good to turn the pain we'd experienced into something constructive, something that would benefit others. In the following weeks, we became more involved in the community. Volunteering at local shelters and food banks became a regular part of our routine. One day, while serving meals to the homeless, a man approached me. He looked worn, life having clearly taken its toll on him. "Thank you for this," he said, his voice cracking. "It means more than you know." I smiled and handed him a plate. "It's our pleasure. Everyone deserves kindness." As he walked away, Henry came over, carrying another tray. "This is what Frank would have wanted, Emma. To make a real difference." We continued to live by this mantra, every step a tribute to Frank's memory. As Laura's presence faded, the love Henry and I shared grew stronger. Each day we reminded ourselves of our resilience, our ability to find light in the darkest of times. One morning, Samantha joined us for coffee on the porch. "I'm so proud of you both," she said, her eyes twinkling. "You've turned something so tragic into hope." Henry and I exchanged glances, both smiling. "It's been a journey," he admitted, "but we've had incredible support." Samantha raised her cup. "To new beginnings and lasting legacies." As we clinked our mugs together, a sense of closure washed over me. We had faced unimaginable challenges, but we emerged stronger and more unified than ever. Later that afternoon, Henry and I visited Frank's grave one last time. We brought flowers, placing them gently on the grass, the sun set, casting a golden hue over the cemetery. Henry spoke softly, breaking the silence. "Goodbye, Dad. We'll carry your legacy forward." I added, my voice full of conviction, "We promise to honor your memory every day." As we walked back to our car, hand in hand, I felt a profound sense of peace. The past was finally behind us, and the future was filled with promise. We had endured the storm and come out the other side, stronger and more determined to live with love and gratitude. This was our new beginning, shaped by the lessons learned and the love inherited from Frank. The darkness of Laura's cruelty could never overshadow the light we had found. We were ready to live fully, embracing each day with open hearts, forever mindful of the legacy we carried forward. Stacy, being a stay-at-home mom is a full-time job. I'll handle the finances. You take care of the house. Kevin's voice boomed across the kitchen. The morning sunlight streamed through the windows, casting an illusion of warmth and peace over the tension-filled room. I nodded, feeling the familiar weight of his words settle onto my shoulders. Sure, Kevin. Our suburban home in Minneapolis, nestled in a quiet cul-de-sac, seemed to embody the perfect American dream. To outsiders, our lives looked beautifully simple. But to me, every corner of this house was a silent witness to my struggle. Days blended into a routine of chores and cooking. Kevin came home every evening and asked if dinner was ready. One Monday morning, I felt unusually fatigued. The room swayed a little as I stood up, prompting me to make an appointment with Dr. Harris. A couple of days later, I sat in his cold, sterile office. Stacy, Dr. Harris began with a smile. Congratulations, you're pregnant. My heart leaped. Finally, a piece of happiness was growing inside me. I rushed home to tell Kevin. He was in the living room, absorbed in his laptop. Kevin, I started, my excitement barely contained. We're going to have a baby. Kevin looked up, his gaze penetrating through me. So you're not actually sick? Just being dramatic? It's morning sickness, Kevin. It's supposed to be hard. I willed him to understand, but his eyes remained cold. Well, that doesn't mean you can slack off. Dinner still needs to be made. Get it done, Stacy. The next few weeks were tough. I could hardly keep food down, but Kevin's demands stayed constant. One morning, sitting down with a dizzy spell, Kevin walked in. You're just using pregnancy as an excuse to slack off. Do your job, Stacy, he said, pouring himself coffee. I'm doing my best. Can't you see how much I'm suffering? My voice cracked, despite my efforts to stay strong. Kevin just shrugged and left for work, his footsteps echoing my isolation. With each passing day, I felt more trapped. The man I once thought was strong and protective had become my jailer. This wasn't the life I wanted for our child. But I was determined. The sacrifice and endurance of carrying life within me gave me new strength, even in the face of Kevin's coldness. Kevin's criticism didn't slow down. With every passing day, the pressure to maintain the house within his rigid standards grew heavier. My mornings now began with relentless nausea, but Kevin never seemed to notice. One evening, exhausted and aching, I struggled to make dinner. Kevin's footsteps on the hardwood floor echoed through the kitchen. This again? He eyed the simple meal I'd prepared. You could at least try, Stacy. I clenched my jaw, fighting back tears. I'm trying, Kevin. It's tough dealing with morning sickness and all the chores. You could have fooled me. He sat down at the table, his eyes cold and unfeeling. Pregnancy is not an excuse to slack off. You signed up for this, remember? I served him a plate in silence, feeling the delicate balance of my world tip further into chaos. My health was deteriorating, every part of me hurt, and the constant nausea left me weak. Kevin's demands, however, only increased. One particularly bad morning, as I was cleaning the bathroom, I felt dizzy and had to sit down. Kevin found me sitting on the floor, mop in hand. Unbelievable, he scoffed. Just when I thought you couldn't get lazier. I'm not lazy, I said, my voice shaky. I'm pregnant, Kevin. I need rest. Don't give me that crap, he shot back. You're using this pregnancy as an excuse. Do your job. Each biting comment dug under my skin, but I rose and grabbed the mop, needing to avoid another fight. Kevin's true nature was becoming clearer each day. The man I married was gone, replaced by someone I barely recognized. I knew I had to accept the harsh truth of my situation. That weekend, Carly called. I decided to take her up on her offer to come over for a bit. I'm worried about you, she said, concern evident in her voice. You sound exhausted. I am, I admitted, but I don't know what to do. Listen to your body, Stacy. You shouldn't be pushing yourself so hard. Her words were soft, yet firm. For a moment, I considered telling her everything but held back. I wasn't ready to open that door just yet. That evening, Kevin came home later than usual. He looked tired, and there was an angry edge to his posture. The house is a mess, he snapped the moment he walked in. I've been sick all day, I explained weakly. I couldn't manage much. You're always sick, aren't you? He sneered. If you can't handle the housework, how are you going to handle a baby? I felt a surge of anger. I'll manage, Kevin. How about some support? His eyes darkened. Support? From me. You're the one failing here, Stacy. I stared at him, the weight of his words crashing over me. The illusion of our perfect marriage was shattered. The man speaking to me now was not the Kevin I once knew. Maybe he never was. With each cruel remark, he pushed me further into a corner. But I wasn't defeated. I had our child to think about, and Kevin's facade was slipping. I turned away from him, clenching my fists to keep from trembling. One thing was clear. This wasn't over. And for the sake of my child, I would find the strength to fight back. Every morning felt like a battle. The nausea, the fatigue, it was like wrestling an invisible enemy. Kevin's anger grew more toxic with every passing day. I tried to keep up, but nothing was ever good enough. You didn't vacuum, Kevin snapped one afternoon, standing in the living room with crossed arms. The vacuum cleaner loomed in the corner, barely out of my reach from where I sat on the couch, trying to catch my breath. I was just about to, I replied, trying to stand. Kevin's face twisted in disdain. Stacy, if you can't handle simple chores, maybe you shouldn't have this baby. His words were like a slap in the face. How can you even say that? You're talking about our child. My voice wavered as anger and disbelief surged through me. Well, if you can't manage a vacuum, what makes you think you can manage a kid? His sarcasm was cutting. I felt my resolve harden. I'll figure it out. I've been doing everything here, haven't I? Kevin rolled his eyes and muttered something under his breath as he stomped out of the room. The door to his home office slammed shut behind him. Heart pounding, I forced myself to stand. Each step toward the vacuum felt like climbing a mountain. But I needed to do this. My child needed me. I pushed the vacuum around the living room, each pass over the floor, feeling like a victory against Kevin's cruelty. That evening, I called Carly. She picked up on the first ring. Hey, Stace, how are you doing? I'm struggling, Carly, I said, my voice breaking. Kevin suggested I shouldn't have this baby. Can you believe that? Her shock was palpable through the phone. He what? Stacy, you can't stay there. It's not safe for you or the baby. What can I do, Carly? I feel trapped. You need to leave him, she urged. Come stay with me. We'll figure it out together. I hesitated, biting my lip. I need to think about it. You've thought about this long enough, Stacy. Just come, tonight. Kevin's voice boomed from the hallway, cutting our conversation short. Why are you always on the phone? Dinner's not going to make itself, you know? I have to go, I whispered to Carly before hanging up. I braced myself and entered the kitchen. Kevin was already seated at the table, tapping his fingers impatiently. I moved around, trying to muster the energy to prepare the meal. The tension in the air was suffocating. Stacy, this attitude of yours is getting old, Kevin said, breaking the silence. Are you even listening to me? Yes, Kevin, I hear you, I said, forcing calm into my voice as I chopped vegetables. You need to stop acting like a martyr, he continued, his tone dripping with disdain. You're not the only pregnant woman in the world, you know. I bit back a retort, focusing on the task before me. As I cooked, I knew Carly was right. This wasn't just my fight anymore. I had another life to protect, and staying here wasn't an option. Once dinner was made and Kevin was distracted with his meal, I slipped away to our bedroom. I began packing a small bag, my hands trembling but determined. I couldn't let Kevin's cruelty dictate the life my child would have. The sounds of Kevin's grumbling from the kitchen drifted in, pushing me to move faster. As I zipped my bag, the common chants of Kevin's voice echoed from downstairs. This was it. This was my moment to escape, to protect my child. And with Carly's help, I knew I could do it. As the early morning light filtered through the curtains, I quietly grabbed my packed bag and tiptoed down the stairs. Kevin was still asleep, giving me the perfect opportunity to leave without confrontation. I dialed Carly's number, my heart pounding. I'm ready, I whispered when she picked up. I'm on my way, just hang tight, she replied, her voice steady and reassuring. Minutes felt like hours as I waited by the door, clutching my bag. The sound of Carly's car pulling up was a lifeline. I slipped out and into the passenger seat, feeling a wave of relief wash over me. You did it, Carly said, giving my hand a comforting squeeze as we pulled away from the house. You're safe now, Stacy. We'll get through this together. We drove in silence, but it was a comforting silence, filled with the unspoken promise of support and safety. When we arrived at Carly's place, she helped me inside and showed me to the guest room. The weight of Kevin's control started to lift as I settled in. Later that day, as I sat on the couch, Carly handed me a cup of tea. "We need to talk about next steps," she said gently. "We can't let Kevin get away with this." "I know," I replied, feeling the resolve strengthen within me, "but he won't let go easily." The next few days were tense. Kevin's texts and calls flooded my phone, his messages growing more aggressive. "Where the hell are you? Come home now," one read. Another said, "You'll regret this, Stacy." I ignored them, my focus on the baby and the new life I was beginning to build. Carly's presence was a constant source of strength. She kept reminding me, "You're doing the right thing." One evening, Kevin's number flashed on my phone. Against my better judgment, I answered it. "Stacy, where are you?" His voice was edged with anger. "I've left, Kevin. I'm done living under your control," I said, my voice surprisingly steady. "If you leave, don't expect to come back," he shouted. "I'm not coming back," I replied firmly, then hung up. The next day, Carly and I met with a lawyer. His eyes were kind but serious as he listened to my story. "We need to file for legal separation and full custody," he advised. "We'll also address the harassment and threats." It was daunting, but with Carly and the lawyer by my side, I felt a glimmer of hope. This was just the beginning. That evening, as I sat with Carly, my phone buzzed again. Another text from Kevin. "You think you can take my child away from me? Think again." "Block his number," Carly suggested. "You don't need that stress." I nodded and did as she suggested, feeling a small victory in that simple act. I was reclaiming my life, step by step. But the battle was far from over. I knew Kevin wouldn't back down easily, and the road ahead would be tough. Yet looking at Carly, I knew I wasn't alone. With her support and my determination, I could face whatever was coming next. "You made the right choice, Stacy," Carly said, smiling at me. "You're stronger than you think." "I hope so," I replied, feeling a newfound resolve solidify within me. And with that, I found the strength to continue. Each day was a step away from the darkness that Kevin had tried to trap me in. My journey was just beginning, but for the first time, I felt the future was mine to shape. Days turned into a whirlwind of legal meetings and emotional support from Carly. The distant threat of Kevin simmered in the background, his aggression muted but ever present. We were sitting at the kitchen table one morning when Carly's doorbell rang, sending a chill down my spine. Carly glanced at me and squeezed my hand before getting up to answer the door. Muffled voices rose from the hallway before she returned, her face pale. "It's Kevin and his mother, Beth." My heart pounded in my chest. Beth had always been supportive, or so I thought. Now I wasn't so sure. "Stacy, we need to talk." Kevin's voice rang out as he entered the room, Beth trailing behind with a stern expression. "There's nothing to discuss, Kevin," I said, standing my ground. "I've made my decision." "Decision?" Beth's eyes narrowed. "Leaving him while pregnant? Do you even understand what you're doing?" I took a deep breath, my resolve firm. "I do, Beth. Kevin has been abusive and controlling. He even suggested I abort our baby just because I couldn't keep up with the housework." Beth's face contorted with disbelief. She turned to Kevin. "Is this true, Kevin? Did you say that?" Kevin's eyes flickered with annoyance. "She's twisting my words. Stacy's not capable of managing on her own." "That's not what I heard," Carly interjected, stepping closer to me. "I've seen the texts, heard the voicemails. Stacy isn't lying." Beth's sternness wavered, giving way to confusion. "Kevin, this isn't how I raised you. How could you?" Kevin's facade slipped. "Mom, you don't understand. I was handling everything. Stacy she wasn't pulling her weight." "That's not an excuse for what you said, Kevin." Beth shot back, her voice quivering. "You're talking about your own child." Kevin's anger flared. "She's blowing this out of proportion. You're all turning on me because she's playing the victim." "She isn't playing anything," Carly said, glancing at Beth. "This is real, and Stacy needs protection from him." I felt a surge of gratitude for Carly and courageously added, "Kevin, this isn't just about us anymore. I have to think about our child, and you are not the man you claim to be." Beth turned to me, a pained expression on her face. "Stacy, I had no idea it was this bad. I'm so sorry." "I appreciate that, Beth," I said softly, "but apologies won't change what Kevin has done." Kevin's eyes burned with anger and desperation. You think you can just take my child away and erase me from your life? I met his gaze, unwavering. I'm not erasing you, Kevin. You made the choice to become this person. Now I'm making the choice to protect myself and our baby. Beth's eyes filled with tears as she turned to Kevin. I can't support you in this, Kevin. I see now that Stacy needs to be away from you. You need help. Beth, you can't be serious, Kevin stuttered, taken aback. Goodbye, Kevin, I said firmly. Take your time to understand what you've done. But don't contact me again. We'll let the lawyers handle everything from here. Kevin stood there, shock and fury battling for control on his face. Then, without another word, he turned and stormed out, leaving Beth standing there, defeated. Thank you, Beth, I said gently as she nodded and followed Kevin out. Once they were gone, I collapsed into Carly's arms, a mix of relief and exhaustion washing over me. You did it, Stacy, Carly whispered. You stood up to him. And I'll keep standing, I replied, feeling a renewed strength, for my baby and for myself. The morning after Kevin's confrontation with Beth, I felt an unfamiliar sense of calm. The house was quiet, and for the first time in weeks, I felt safe. I knew this was far from over, but facing Kevin and his mother had given me newfound courage. Carly sat across from me at the kitchen table, sipping her coffee. Beth's reaction shook him. You could see it in his eyes, she said, breaking the silence. I nodded. It's the first time anyone stood up to him, aside from me. The doorbell rang, startling us both. Carly went to answer it, glancing back at me nervously. She returned with our lawyer. Good morning, he greeted, taking a seat. We have a strong case for full custody and child support, but I need to know if you're ready for what's about to unfold. I took a deep breath. I'm ready. I need to protect my child. Kevin's downfall began the moment the papers were served. Beth's support for me had become public, turning the community's opinion against him. He started missing work, his professional reputation taking a hit. One afternoon, Kevin showed up at Carly's house, banging on the door. Carly peered through the window and frowned. It's him. Stay here, she instructed, stepping outside to confront him. I watched from the window, anxiety twisting in my chest. Get lost, Kevin. Stacy doesn't want to see you, Carly said firmly. He pushed past her, storming into the house. Stacy, this is insane. You're tearing my life apart. I stood, bracing myself. You did that to yourself, Kevin. You need to leave. His eyes flashed with desperation. Please, Stacy, let's talk. We can fix this. Carly stepped between us. Kevin, you've done enough damage. Get out. Kevin's face twisted with rage. You think you can replace me, Carly? You're filling her head with lies. I held up a hand, trying to stay calm. Kevin, leave now, or I'll call the police. He took a step toward me, his eyes dark and menacing. You think you're so brave, Stacy? This isn't over. Get out, Carly shouted, shoving him toward the door. We're done here. Kevin stumbled back, glaring at both of us before storming out. I collapsed onto the couch, shaking. Thank you, Carly. I couldn't have faced him alone. Carly sat beside me, wrapping an arm around my shoulders. You're stronger than you know, Stacy. The confrontation with Kevin had left me rattled, but the battle lines were now clearly drawn. His desperate behavior only strengthened our case against him. That evening, our lawyer called with an update. Kevin's losing support rapidly. His erratic behavior and Beth's public disapproval have turned people against him. It's going in our favor. I felt a spark of hope. Thank you. As the weeks passed, Kevin's life continued to unravel. Beth's disownment had left him isolated, and his attempts to reach me grew increasingly frantic. I blocked his number, focusing on my baby and the future I was carving out. Beth called one evening, her voice heavy with sorrow. Stacy, I want you to know that I'm here for you. Kevin is my son, but the person he's become, I can't support him. Thank you, Beth, I said, tears stinging my eyes. Your support means the world to me. You're doing the right thing, she said softly. Stay strong. The climax of Kevin's downfall came when our lawyer informed us that we had a strong case for full custody and child support. Kevin's once formidable control had crumbled entirely. You've brought disgrace upon this family. You're no longer my son. Beth's words cut through Kevin's last line of defense, leaving him utterly alone and broken. Mom, you can't mean that. Kevin's voice cracked, the reality sinking in, but Beth's resolve was firm. I do, and until you seek help, you're not welcome back. Kevin's empire of control had fallen. I felt an overwhelming sense of liberation as I prepared to take the final steps toward a new beginning. Carly and I sat on the porch that evening, watching the sunset. "We did it, Stacy," Carly said, smiling. "You're free." I nodded, feeling the weight lift. "And now I can finally start anew. For me and my baby." The legal proceedings moved forward swiftly. With each step, I felt a little closer to freedom. Carly and I sat in the lawyer's office discussing our final strategy. "We have a strong case," the lawyer assured us. "Kevin's history of emotional abuse and recent erratic behavior work in our favor. Full custody and child support are almost certain." I nodded, feeling a sense of relief. "Thank you for everything." As we left the office, my phone buzzed with another text from Kevin. I didn't need to read it to know it would be filled with desperation and threats. I blocked his number, determined not to let his words affect me. At Carly's house, I began to focus on rebuilding my life. I decorated the guest room, preparing it for my baby. Carly helped me pick out pastel colors, and we filled the room with love and care. One evening, while we were arranging baby clothes, Carly looked over at me. "You're doing amazing, Stacy. I'm so proud of you." "Thanks, Carly. I couldn't have done it without you." Our peace was occasionally interrupted by unwanted messages from Kevin's friends and family, but Carly's unwavering support kept me grounded. One day, as I was leaving the grocery store, I saw Kevin across the parking lot. He looked disheveled, his once confident demeanor shattered. He approached me, his face a mixture of anger and desperation. "Stacy, please, I need to talk to you," he pleaded. I stood my ground. "There's nothing left to say, Kevin. We're finished." He reached out, his hand trembling. "I'm begging you, Stacy. Don't shut me out." I stepped back, shaking my head. "This isn't about you anymore. It's about what's best for our child, and me." "You need help, Kevin." His eyes filled with fury. "You'll regret this." Carly arrived to pick me up, her presence a shield against Kevin's hostility. She stepped between us, her voice firm. "Leave her alone, Kevin. You're only making things worse." Kevin's shoulders slumped, and for the first time I saw a hint of defeat in his eyes. He turned and walked away, that as further solidifying that our paths had truly diverged. Back at Carly's house, I felt a sense of closure. I spent the next few weeks focusing on my health and preparing for my child's arrival. The community's support and Carly's unwavering care became my anchors. The final court date arrived, and Carly stood by my side as the judge reviewed our case. "It is clear that Mr. Anderson's behavior is not conducive to a healthy environment for the child. Full custody is granted to Mrs. Anderson. Child support will be mandated." Tears of relief streamed down my face as the gavel came down, solidifying my freedom. Carly hugged me tight, and the weight of the past months finally lifted. Outside the courthouse, I received a message from my lawyer. Kevin had tried to appeal the decision, but was denied. His desperation had turned into a string of apologetic and pleading texts, which I chose to ignore. Carly and I walked to the car, the sun shining brightly overhead. "How do you feel?" she asked, her hand in mine. "Free," I replied, feeling the future open up before me. I spent the next few days planning for the baby's arrival, focusing on the positive changes ahead. Kevin's attempts at reconciliation continued, but I remained resolute. Each ignored message was a step toward reclaiming my strength. When I visited the nursery we'd prepared, I stood by the crib, running my hand along the smooth wood. Carly joined me, her smile warm. "This baby is going to have the best mom." "Thanks to you, Carly," I said, feeling a wave of gratitude. As I prepared for my child's birth, I knew that I had overcome the worst. My focus shifted from the past to the hopeful future, ready to embrace the new dawn with my baby. For the first time, I felt truly empowered, ready to protect and love the life growing inside me. And that night, as I lay in bed, the weight of Kevin's control finally lifted, leaving behind the strength of my own resilience. The future was mine to shape, and I was determined to fill it with love and hope for my child. The days leading up to my baby's birth blended into a mix of appointments and final preparations. Carly was a constant presence, her calm reassurance grounding me. We were folding baby clothes in the nursery when her phone buzzed. She frowned and showed me the screen. It was a news article about Kevin. "Kevin's in serious trouble at work," Carly said, her voice low. "Seems people are finally seeing his true colors." A part of me felt a twinge of vindication, but I quickly brushed it away, focusing on the task at hand. It's not our problem anymore, I said, determined to keep my focus on the future. My water broke one morning as I was sipping tea with Carly on the porch. Panic flickered in her eyes, but she quickly composed herself. All right, time to go, she said, grabbing the hospital bag we'd packed weeks earlier. She guided me to the car, her calm presence a balm against the rising tide of anxiety. At the hospital, the hours blurred into a haze of pain and determination. Carly held my hand through each contraction, her support unwavering. Finally, with one last push, my baby's first cry filled the room, bringing tears of joy and relief. It's a girl, the doctor announced, placing the tiny bundle in my arms. I looked down at her, overwhelmed by love and protectiveness. We did it, Carly whispered, tears streaming down her face. The next few days were a whirlwind of diaper changes, feedings, and little sleep. Carly was my rock, guiding me through the early days of motherhood. My baby's presence was a beacon of hope, illuminating the dark chapters of my past. One evening, as Carly and I sat on the porch, my baby asleep in my arms, we reflected on the journey we'd been through. You're starting a new chapter, Stacy, Carly said, her voice filled with pride. You and your daughter are going to have a beautiful life. I couldn't have done it without you, Carly, I replied, squeezing her hand. You've been my strength through all of this. As the days turned into weeks, I found a new rhythm. The community's support, once a source of curiosity, became a network of genuine care. People stopped by with meals and gifts, their gestures small but significant. One afternoon, Beth visited. She looked older, the weight of her son's actions clearly taking a toll on her. Stacy, I wanted to see how you're doing, she said, her voice trembling with emotion. We're doing well, Beth. Thank you for your support, I responded, my tone sincere. I'm so sorry for everything. Kevin's getting help. Her eyes pleaded for understanding. I hope he finds the help he needs for everyone's sake, I said, holding my daughter close. Beth nodded, tears brimming in her eyes. You're a strong woman, Stacy. Your daughter is lucky to have you. After she left, I sat with Carly, processing the visit. Do you think he'll change? I asked, not expecting a definitive answer. People can change, but it takes a lot of effort and willingness. For now, focus on you and your baby, Carly advised, her words like a comforting blanket. The future stretched out before me, filled with both uncertainty and promise. Kevin's shadow lingered, but it no longer defined me. My daughter's presence was a constant reminder of the strength I'd found within myself. One evening, as Carly and I watched the sunset, she turned to me with a smile. What's next for you, Stacy? Building a life filled with love and safety for my daughter, I replied, feeling a profound sense of purpose, creating a home where she'll always feel valued and protected. Carly nodded, her eyes reflecting pride and support. You've got this, Stacy. You're one of the strongest people I know. As I held my daughter, I knew that even without a traditional family structure, she would grow up surrounded by love and resilience. Together, we were stepping into a new dawn, ready to face the future with hope and determination. Is this really what you want, Adam? Ambushing your own wedding to expose my affair? Chloe's voice was sharp, biting through the murmur of the crowd. The rooftop was supposed to be a dream setting, with twinkling lights and the Chicago skyline as the backdrop. But the scene had devolved into a nightmare. Guests in their elegant attire stood frozen, eyes darting between Chloe and Adam, the groom. Adam's face was pale, beads of sweat glistening on his forehead. He didn't answer Chloe directly. Instead, he turned to Claire, his bride, his voice trembling. Claire. Before he could finish, Ethan, Chloe's husband, barged in. He looked furious, his face flushed with anger. Adam, how could you do this? You disgust me. Gasps filled the air as Ethan shoved a stack of photos into Claire's hands. These were taken last week, he said, glaring at Adam. No work event in sight. You both were together, cheating on your partners. Claire's hands trembled as she glanced at the photos. Her eyes widened, tears welling up. She turned to Adam, her voice barely a whisper. Is it true? Did you really cheat on me with her? Adam stammered. Claire, it's not what you think. Ethan cut him off, seething. Don't lie to her. She deserves the truth. He pointed a finger at Adam, then at Chloe. You both have been sneaking around for months. Claire felt her heart shatter, the weight of betrayal pressing down on her. She blinked back tears, her mind racing. Memories of Adam's late nights, his evasive answers, his distant behavior all rushed back. It all made sense now. She lifted her chin, her voice steadying despite the chaos. "How could you do this to me, Adam? On our wedding day?" She threw the photos to the ground, glaring at him. The crowd around them was buzzing, guests whispering, scandalized expressions on their faces. Adam's parents looked mortified, standing to the side, too shocked to intervene. Adam stepped forward, trying to grasp Claire's hands. "Claire, please, I made a mistake. I love you." Claire yanked her hands away, her eyes blazing with fury. "Love? You call this love? You humiliated me. You lied." Chloe scoffed, crossing her arms. "Please, Claire, spare us the drama. You weren't exactly a saint either." Claire felt a surge of anger. She stepped closer to Chloe, her voice fierce. "Stay out of this, Chloe. You're part of the problem." She then turned back to Adam. "You've made your choice, Adam. Now you'll face the consequences." Ethan nodded in agreement. "I'm with you, Claire. We won't let them get away with this." The guests started to disperse, whispering and shaking their heads, the once celebratory atmosphere now dismal and heavy. Claire felt the support of friends and family around her, some offering quiet reassurances, others glaring at Adam and Chloe. Adam looked defeated, his shoulders slumped. He made one last attempt to reach Claire. "Please, Claire, let's talk." Claire's resolve hardened. "There's nothing left to say. You've broken my trust, and there's no fixing it." As she walked away, Ethan joined her, his arms supportive around her shoulder. "We'll get through this, Claire. Together." Claire glanced back once more at Adam, seeing only a stranger, a traitor. Determination surged within her. This was just the beginning. She'd make sure Adam and Chloe paid dearly for their deceit. The sounds of the city buzzed outside the car window as Ethan drove me back to my apartment. Silence hung heavy between us, interrupted only by the rhythmic thud of potholes beneath the tires. "You know, it's unbelievable," Ethan finally said, gripping the steering wheel tightly, his knuckles white. "The lengths they went to, lying to us both." I nodded, staring out the window. "Yeah, they really took us for fools." Flashes of the past few months hit me. Late nights at the startup where Adam and I first met, believed to be because of his passion and dedication. Candlelit dinners turning into lonely evenings with flimsy excuses about work meetings. His distant stares and forced smiles. "You complete me, Claire," Adam had once said, brushing a lock of hair behind my ear. "But I still can't believe you left your career for me. It used to make me feel loved, but now it felt like the beginning of deceit." Leaving my job, supporting his dreams, the sacrifices I realized were one-sided. Ethan noticed my furrowed brow. "You all right?" I took a deep breath. "Just thinking about how much I gave up, and how blind I was." Ethan pulled into a parking spot outside my apartment. "We were both deceived, Claire, but now we know, and knowledge is power." I nodded, accepting his outstretched hand as I got out of the car. Together we walked up to my apartment. "Mind if I come in?" Ethan asked. "Sure," I replied, opening the door. Inside, my world was still decorated with remnants of what was supposed to be our life together. Wedding planning books lay open on the coffee table, and a framed engagement photo stared back at us from the mantel. "You loved him, didn't you?" Ethan said softly, glancing around. "Yeah," I sighed. "I thought he was my future. Now I don't know what's real." Ethan shook his head. "Their betrayal is the only truth we need. We'll make sure they pay for what they did." I turned to face him, determination rising. "We start tonight. No more feeling sorry for myself." Ethan smiled grimly. "That's the spirit. Let's figure out their game plan." Laying out my laptop on the table, I pulled out a notebook filled with dates and events. Ethan opened his phone, scrolling through captured screenshots and text messages Chloe never knew he saw. "Do you have access to their shared apartment?" "We might find some clues there," Ethan suggested. "No, but I have access to our shared bank statements." "Maybe there's something suspicious," I said, logging in. Ethan showed me a string of damning messages between Adam and Chloe. "They met up almost every time she claimed to be out with friends," he said. I felt disgust rising in my throat, but I kept scrolling, looking for patterns. "Aha," I said, pointing at a series of charges. "Look at these hotel stays. They match the nights Adam said he was working late." Ethan's eyes narrowed. "Perfect. This will help build our case." The night wore on with us compiling evidence. Every new piece of proof solidified our resolve. They were deceitful, and we were on the path to uncovering every lie. By dawn, a plan began to take shape, and in the early morning light, I saw the first glimpse of my determination reflected in the weary yet focused eyes of Ethan beside me. "We'll take them down," I promised. "Not just for us, but because they deserve nothing less." Ethan nodded. "Let the games begin." And so with our newfound alliance, an unexpected partnership formed out of mutual betrayal, plotting a revenge more devastating than either Adam or Chloe could ever imagine. The private room in the restaurant was dimly lit, designed for intimate dinners, not confrontational meetings. I glanced around, feeling a mix of dread and determination. Ethan sat across from me, his face serious as he arranged the evidence we had gathered. Just then, the door swung open, and Adam walked in, his expression a mix of confusion and worry. "Claire, what's this about?" he asked, shutting the door behind him. I locked eyes with him, holding back the flood of emotions threatening to overwhelm me. "Sit down, Adam. We need to talk." He glanced at Ethan, a flicker of annoyance crossing his face, but he complied, sinking into the chair across from me. "What's going on?" Ethan wasted no time, slamming a folder down on the table. "These were taken last week, Adam. No work event in sight." Adam's face drained of color as he opened the folder, revealing photos of him and Chloe in compromising situations. His eyes darted back to mine, but I stayed silent, letting the evidence speak for itself. "Claire, I can explain." Ethan cut him off. "Save it, Adam. We all know what's going on. You've been lying, cheating, and betraying Claire for months." Adam's hands shook as he flipped through the photos. "You've been spying on me?" Ethan leaned forward, his voice cold. "Don't try to turn this around, Adam. You brought this on yourself." Adam tried to stammer out an excuse, but I finally found my voice, interrupting him. "Why, Adam? Was I not enough for you?" He looked at me, guilt and panic in his eyes. "Claire, it was a mistake, a stupid, stupid mistake. I didn't mean for any of this to happen." I clenched my fists, holding back tears. "A mistake? Months of lies and deceit? How could you do this to me?" Adam reached out, desperation in his touch. "Please, Claire, I love you. We can work through this." I recoiled, disgusted. "You don't get to decide that now. This isn't just about us. You made it public, humiliated me in front of everyone." Ethan's jaw tightened. "And now you'll face the consequences, both of you." Adam's face contorted with a mix of anger and fear. "What are you going to do?" Ethan stood, gathering the evidence. "We're going to make sure everyone knows the truth. Your colleagues, your friends, everyone will see you for what you are." Adam's eyes widened in panic. "You can't do that. It'll ruin me." I stood as well, looking down at him. "You ruined us first, Adam. Now you'll understand what it feels like." Ethan and I left the room, leaving Adam alone with the weight of his actions. Outside, I took a deep breath, feeling a strange mix of relief and sadness. "You okay?" Ethan asked, his voice softer now. I nodded, though everything inside felt like it was crumbling. "I will be. This is just the beginning." We walked out into the early evening, the city buzzing around us, unaware of the personal storm that had just unfolded. I knew this wouldn't end here. There was more to uncover, more to fight against. And with Ethan by my side, I wasn't alone in this battle. As we parted ways, I felt a small spark of hope. Revenge wasn't just about making them pay. It was about finding my strength again, piece by piece. The wedding ceremony turned from a celebration to a battleground the moment I grabbed the microphone. The usual wedding noise dissipated, replaced by a heavy, anticipatory silence. My fingers tightened around the mic, my pulse thrumming in my ears. "To our guests," I began, my voice steady, eyes burning with resolve. "I regret to inform you that today's celebration is actually a deceit." A wave of gasps rippled through the gathered friends and family. Adam, standing just a few feet away, froze, his face draining of color. Chloe, in the corner, masked her fear with a poorly put-on look of boredom. With Ethan by my side, I continued, my voice gaining strength. "Adam and Chloe have been having an affair for months. Behind all your backs, they've been living a lie." Adam took a step toward me, his hand outstretched, desperation in his eyes. "Claire, stop. Let's not do this here." I ignored him, locking eyes with Chloe instead. "You were supposed to be a friend, Chloe, but you betrayed me." Chloe's face twisted in disdain. "Oh, please, Claire, spare us your victim story." The murmurs turned into open discussions as the guests began whispering amongst themselves, some pulling out their phones, others exchanging shocked glances. An elderly aunt shouted, "What's going on here?" Adam found his voice, turning to the crowd. "There's been a misunderstanding. This is not the place to discuss personal matters." I shook my head, feeling my anger rise. "You made it public, Adam, by betraying me and lying to all of us. They deserve to know the truth." Ethan, standing tall, lifted a hand. "We have proof. For those who still doubt, we have evidence of their affair." The crowd buzzed louder. Adam's parents looked mortified, while others shook their heads in disbelief. I turned back to Adam, my resolve hardening. "I loved you," I said, my voice catching. "And this is how you repay me? With deceit and betrayal?" Adam's face tightened, anger flashing. "Claire, this is not the place. We can resolve this privately." But I wasn't backing down. "No, Adam, the time for hiding is over." I raised my voice, making sure everyone could hear. "This man is a liar. He has not only betrayed me but has disrespected all of you by pretending to be someone he's not." Unable to contain herself, Chloe snapped. "Grow up, Claire. Marriages aren't perfect. People make mistakes." Ethan shot her a withering glance. "Mistakes? Months of lies and deceit are more than mistakes. You're both shameless." A younger cousin piped up from the back. "This is insane. How could you, Adam?" As I scanned the room, the sympathy from our peers and my family bolstered my strength. I took a deep breath, concluding my speech. "This wedding is over, but their reckoning has just begun." With that, I handed the microphone back, the weight lifting from my shoulders. I felt a surge of empowerment as I walked down the aisle, past stunned faces and hushed whispers. Ethan followed, placing a reassuring hand on my shoulder. "You did great, Claire. This is just the start." I nodded, feeling the first sense of clarity in days. Adam and Chloe would face consequences, and I was no longer a pawn in their game. With each step, my determination grew. They had underestimated me, but now they had unleashed a force they couldn't control. Ethan and I stood in the hallway outside Chloe's office. The dim lights buzzed softly above us, casting long shadows on the floor. The air was thick with anticipation as Ethan pulled out a small USB drive from his pocket. "This contains the security footage from their office. It shows more than work going on," he said, the corners of his mouth tightening. I nodded, taking a deep breath. "Let's see what we've got." We snuck into Chloe's office, making sure the corridor was empty. The door clicked shut behind us, the room filled with the sterile smell of paper and printer ink. Ethan powered up her computer, inserting the USB drive. Moments later, the screen was filled with timestamps and video files. He clicked on one, and we watched as the grainy footage played back, Chloe and Adam laughing, too close for comfort. Ethan's face turned a deeper shade of red, anger simmering just below the surface. "Bingo," I whispered. "This is exactly what we need." We copied the files onto our own drive, ensuring we had multiple backups. Ethan pointed to her desk drawer. "See if there are any other incriminating documents." I nodded, opening the drawer quickly, rifling through papers and folders. My hand stopped on a stack of receipts documenting lavish dinners, hotel stays, and expensive gifts, all addressed to Adam. I held them up, showing Ethan. "Here's more proof. Chloe's been financing this affair." Ethan's eyes darkened. "Perfect. This will add to their disgrace." After securing everything, we quietly left the office, locking the door behind us. We needed more, and our next stop was our old apartment. The place was still filled with remnants of our supposedly happy life together. Framed photos of us at the beach, movie nights, the proposal. It all felt like mockery now. Ethan helped me search through Adam's things, driven by the same thirst for justice. We combed through every drawer, every closet, until we found a hidden box under the bed, taped shut. I slid it open with a kitchen knife, revealing a collection of intimate photos, texts printed out on paper, and even more receipts. My stomach churned as I read through them, feeling a pang of betrayal each time. "Look at this," Ethan said, pulling out a small notebook. It was Adam's, filled with handwritten notes about his meetings with Chloe, their future plans, and disgusting details about their time together. "This guy really spared no effort in planning his double life," Ethan muttered, disgust evident in his voice. I felt numb, the reality settling over me like a suffocating blanket. But I straightened up, fueled by the anger that had now taken root deep within me. "We'll use everything, every single detail." Ethan nodded, packing the evidence carefully. "We'll make sure they face the consequences, legally and personally. We're far from done." As we left the apartment, the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the city. The weight of the evidence we held meant more than just revenge. It symbolized our fight for justice. Adam and Chloe thought they could live their lives without repercussions, but they were about to face the full brunt of their actions. With Ethan by my side, we were unyielding. They ruined the life I had envisioned, but in their place, they built the platform for their own downfall. I wasn't just reclaiming my strength, I was constructing their reckoning, piece by piece, and I was just getting started. The courtroom felt cold, austere. I stood next to my attorney, scanning the room. Adam sat across from me, looking disheveled and tense, his attorney whispering furiously in his ear. The judge entered, and we all rose, ready for what was to come. Case number 4798, Claire Reynolds versus Adam Michaels, petition for divorce and division of assets, the judge intoned. My attorney presented the evidence methodically, photos, texts, bank statements. Adam's lawyer tried to dispute them, but the weight of our proof was undeniable. I glanced at Adam during one of the breaks, his face contorted in frustration. His world was crumbling, and he knew it. In the final moments before the judge left to deliberate, Adam stood, desperate. Claire, please. This is destroying me. We can talk this out. I shook my head, my voice unwavering. You made this bed, Adam. Now lie in it. As the judge rendered the decision in my favor, granting the divorce and a fair division of assets, I felt a grim satisfaction. This was just the beginning of Adam's downfall. Leaving the courthouse, I pulled out my phone. Time to take the next step. With Ethan's help, we had crafted a statement and gathered all the evidence. I posted everything online. The affair, the betrayal, every sordid detail laid bare for the world to see. Within hours, the post went viral. Friends, colleagues, strangers, all began to share the story. The backlash was immediate. Emails flooded in, and phone notifications buzzed relentlessly. Later that evening, a message from Adam's boss appeared in my inbox. The subject line read, "Urgent, meeting request." My fingers trembled as I opened it, feeling a small flicker of vindication. The next morning, an emergency meeting occurred at Adam's office. Ethan and I stood nearby, out of sight but close enough to witness the fallout. We watched as Adam entered the building, head low, greeted by fearful stares and whispered words. Inside the meeting room, Adam's boss, a stern man in his 50s, didn't waste time. "Adam, we can't have this scandal reflect on our company," he said curtly. Adam looked desperate, his voice rising. "This is all personal. It has nothing to do with my work." But his boss was firm. "Personal matters have professional consequences, Adam. Your actions have tarnished the company's reputation. We have no choice but to terminate your contract." Adam slumped in his chair, defeated, his world disintegrating further. Ethan squeezed my hand, a silent gesture of solidarity. We walked away, leaving Adam to face the repercussions of his choices. That evening, Ethan and I met again, this time at a quiet cafe. He looked worn, but a small smile played on his lips. "We did it, Claire. We exposed them." I nodded, feeling a mix of relief and exhaustion. "But it's not over yet. Chloe still has to pay." Ethan agreed. "Her husband should be served with the divorce papers soon, and with the evidence we've gathered, it'll be airtight." As we sat there, the weight of the day's events settling over us, I felt a flicker of hope. The path to healing was long, but with each step, I could reclaim more of myself. And knowing Adam and Chloe were facing the consequences they deserved brought a sense of justice. Ethan raised his coffee cup in a small toast. "To new beginnings and hard-fought justice." I clinked my cup against his, the taste of victory bittersweet. But it was a start, and that was enough for now. Adam's life was unraveling faster than I expected. A week after his firing, rumors swirled that he was struggling to keep his apartment. I stood outside his building, watching as he leaned against the doorway, on the phone and looking desperate. "Please, Mr. Lambert, just give me one more month. I swear the funds will come through," Adam pleaded. His landlord's voice crackled through the phone, loud enough for anyone nearby to hear. "You're 3 months behind, Adam. You've got to go. This is your final notice." Adam slumped, pocketing his phone. He looked around, defeated, before storming inside. I turned away, feeling a mix of satisfaction and lingering heartache. Adam was paying for what he did, but it wasn't easy to watch. The scene at Chloe's was equally dramatic. Ethan had secured damning evidence, and Chloe was served with divorce papers. Her life of luxury was slipping away fast. At her house, I saw the familiar sleek car parked outside. Ethan had insisted we witness the fallout firsthand. Inside, raised voices carried through the thin walls. "No way," Chloe screamed. "You can't take everything, Ethan. We built this life together." Ethan's reply was icy. "You built it on lies. I'm taking what's mine and you'll be left with nothing." "I'll fight you in court," she spat back, desperation creeping into her tone. Ethan's laugh was hollow. "Good luck. With all the evidence Claire and I have, you don't stand a chance." Their argument continued, but the point was clear. Chloe's gilded cage was collapsing. A few days later, I bumped into Adam on the street. His eyes were hollow, hair disheveled. He hesitated before speaking. "Claire, can we talk?" I raised an eyebrow, feeling no sympathy. "What's there to say, Adam? You made your choices." He sighed heavily. "I'm broke, lost my job. I'm losing everything. Can't we work something out?" I scoffed, crossing my arms. "Work something out? You cheated, lied, ruined our life. Now you're reaping what you sowed." He looked down, tears welling up. "I know I messed up, but please, Claire, I need help." I felt a pang of the old affection, but quickly buried it. "You didn't think of us when you were with Chloe. Now you deal with the consequences." Turning on my heel, I walked away, heart hardened. There was no room for pity, not after everything. That evening, Ethan called, his voice triumphant. "Claire, Chloe's agreed to our terms. I'm getting the assets and she's moving out." "Good," I replied. "They both deserve this." We shared a moment of silence through the phone, the weight of our victories settling over us. It was a hollow win, knowing how much had been lost before it. The seeds of their downfall had blossomed into their full ruin. Adam was evicted, with no job prospects, Chloe's social circle disintegrated, and her lavish life was stripped away. Consequence followed action, and karma played its part. Watching their struggles reminded me that justice sometimes had a way of setting things right, however imperfectly. As I moved forward, collecting the pieces of my own shattered dreams, I knew one thing for certain. Their downfall was only the beginning of my new chapter. The darkness they dragged me into had lifted, making way for the light I had always deserved. The sunlight streamed through the curtains of my new apartment. It was smaller than the one I had shared with Adam, but it was mine, untouched by memories of betrayal. The boxes piled around held a different kind of promise, a fresh start. I picked up a framed photo of my parents and placed it on the mantel. My phone buzzed, pulling me back to the present. It was an email notification, another job offer, the fourth one this week. After everything went public, my professional contacts reached out, offering support and opportunities. Scrolling through the emails, one stood out. International Tech Solutions, a well-respected firm, wanted to meet. I dialed the provided number. "Hi, this is Claire Reynolds. I received a job offer and would like to discuss the details." A warm voice responded. "Of course, Claire. We're impressed with your background and what you've overcome. When can you come in?" "Tomorrow works for me," I replied, feeling a flicker of excitement. "Great. We'll see you at 10 a.m. Hanging up, I felt a weight lift. The future seemed bright, no longer tainted by the past. That night, I met Ethan for dinner. We found a quiet table in the corner of the restaurant. He looked relaxed, a stark difference from the past few months. "How are things?" Ethan asked, smiling. I took a sip of water. "Good, better. Got a few job offers, actually. One of them looks promising." His eyes twinkled. "I'm glad. You deserve it, Claire. What about other things?" "Other things?" I raised an eyebrow, pretending not to know. He chuckled. "You know, love and mushy stuff. You can move on now." His words lingered in the air. I hadn't really thought about dating since everything. "Well, there is this guy at one of the firms, Ryan, a colleague. We went out for coffee. He's nice," I admitted, feeling a bit vulnerable. Ethan grinned. "Look at you, moving on. Just remember, you deserve respect and genuine care." The next morning, I walked into the elegant offices of International Tech Solutions. The receptionist directed me to the conference room, where a man in his early 30s greeted me. "Claire, so good to meet you. I'm Ryan, the project manager here." His handshake was firm, his smile genuine. Ryan was different, kind and attentive. Our conversation flowed easily, and by the end of the meeting, I knew I wanted to work there. 2 weeks later, I was settled into my new role at the company. Ryan and I had lunch often, our conversations deepening beyond work. One day, while walking back from lunch, he looked at me with soft eyes. "Claire, You've been through a lot, and I admire your resilience. I want you to know, I value you for who you are, not what you can do for me." His words touched me, filling a void I didn't know still existed. As days turned into weeks, my life started to piece together. The bitterness of the past began to fade, replaced by hope and excitement for what lay ahead. Adam and Chloe faded into the background, their downfall complete, and I remained stronger, wiser. One evening, while overlooking the city from my apartment, I felt a deep sense of peace. The wounds had healed, leaving scars that didn't hurt anymore. I was thankful for new beginnings and the strength that had carried me through. Ryan's voice broke my reverie. "Claire, you okay?" I turned, smiling. "Yeah, I am. For the first time in a long while, I really am." And with that, we stepped into the future. One filled with promise, free from the shadows of betrayal and pain. "You think you can cheat on me and take everything? You're delusional, Jeff." My voice broke the silence of our living room, barely able to contain my rage as I stared at my husband across the table. Jeff didn't flinch. Instead, he sighed heavily, casting an indifferent glance at the divorce papers in front of him. "You're making a scene, Laura. Just sign the damn papers." His calm demeanor infuriated me. We'd been married for 15 years. How could he toss it all away so easily? Just like that. I could feel my hands trembling, either from anger or heartbreak. I couldn't quite tell. "And what about Emily? Have you even thought about her?" I accused, knowing our 10-year-old daughter was asleep upstairs, clueless about the turmoil unfolding below. "Emily will be fine. Kids are resilient," Jeff replied, brushing off my concern like a speck of dust. "Fine?" My voice pitched higher. "You think she'll be fine with her father abandoning her for a side piece? How long have you been seeing her, Jeff?" His eyes finally met mine, cold and detached. "Long enough. This isn't about us anymore, Laura. It's about what's right for me." "What's right for you?" I repeated, nearly spitting the words out. "What about us? What about the family we've built? Are you seriously this selfish?" Jeff picked up the pen, twirling it absent-mindedly between his fingers. "I've given you stability, Laura. I've provided for you and Emily. It's not like you won't get anything. The settlement is more than fair." "Fair? Please, Jeff," I seethed through clenched teeth. "You've taken the best years of my life and traded them for... What? A fling with your secretary? Do you even hear yourself?" He leaned back in his chair, looking bored. "You're being dramatic. Besides, I'm sick. I can't keep living like this. Stress isn't good for my heart." "Your heart." The irony stung. "If you cared so much about your health, maybe you wouldn't run around with a woman half my age while I hold this family together." "I've made up my mind," Jeff snapped, finally showing a hint of frustration. "Sign the papers, and we can both move on." "And if I don't?" I challenged, voice level despite the chaos within. "What's your plan then?" Jeff leaned forward, suddenly fierce. "I'll make sure you regret it. Don't push me, Laura. This can get ugly very quickly." A cold shiver ran down my spine. This man sitting before me, a man I once loved, was now a stranger. A threat. "Is this what you want to teach Emily?" I whispered, my voice trembling. "That marriage, love, commitment, all can be thrown away like garbage?" Jeff stood up, slamming the pen onto the table. "This conversation is over. I'm done arguing with you. Sign them, or..." He paused, eyes narrowing. "I'll take this to court, and trust me, you'll lose." I watched him walk away, each step a reminder of the life slipping from my grasp. The papers lay stark on the table, a future neither of us envisioned when we first said, "I do." For a moment, I stood there, frozen in place, the magnitude of his betrayal washing over me. But as I glanced upstairs toward Emily's room, a surge of determination flowed through me. This wasn't over. Not by a long shot. Jeff's words echoed in my mind. Kids are resilient. Yes, they were, and I would show Emily just how resilient her mother could be. The alarm buzzed at 6 sharp. I groaned, reaching out to silence it. Another day, another battle. I shuffled to the bathroom, barely glancing at my reflection. Dark circles, pale skin, signs of sleepless nights and endless worries. I splashed cold water on my face, hoping to wash away the exhaustion. "Mom?" Emily's soft voice broke through the fog of my thoughts. I turned to see her standing in the doorway, her blonde hair tousled from sleep. "Are you okay?" I forced a smile. "Of course, sweetie. Just getting ready for work." She nodded, but her eyes lingered on my face a moment longer. "Can we have pancakes for breakfast?" "Sure thing." I ruffled her hair as she beamed, her innocence a stark contrast to the chaos lurking beneath our roof. Downstairs, I found Jeff at the kitchen table, reading the paper. The divorce papers were gone, but the tension was palpable. He looked up as I entered, his eyes narrowing. "Did you sleep at all?" he asked, his tone devoid of concern. "Does it matter?" I replied, opening the fridge to get the pancake mix. "It does if you're going to drag your feet around and make things miserable for everyone," he shot back. I slammed the fridge door, the sound reverberating through the kitchen. "I'm not the one making things miserable, Jeff," he snorted, going back to his paper. "I'm not getting into this again." "Good," I said, pouring the pancake mix into a bowl, "because I have no interest in talking to a liar and a cheat." Emily's footsteps on the stairs halted our conversation. "Pancakes smell good," she announced, a bright smile on her face as she entered the kitchen. The tension in the room seemed to lift, if only slightly. "Morning, Pumpkin," Jeff said, a forced cheerfulness in his voice. "Did you sleep well?" "Yep," she replied, climbing onto a chair. "Mom's making my favorite." "She sure is," Jeff said, casting a sideways glance at me. "Your mom's good at a lot of things." I ignored him, focusing on flipping the pancakes. My phone buzzed on the counter. Monica. I grabbed it and walked toward the living room for privacy. "Hey," I greeted her, my voice low. "Morning, Laura. Just checking in. How are you holding up?" "Same as always," I replied with a sigh, trying to keep it together for Emily. "You're stronger than you think," Monica assured me. "Have you thought about what we discussed?" "I have," I said, "but I'm not sure if I'm ready." "He's not going to change, Laura. You need to think about your future, Emily's future." "I know," I whispered, trying to keep the emotion out of my voice. "I'll talk to the lawyer you recommended." "Good. And remember, I'm here for you. Always." "Thanks, Monica. I don't know what I'd do without you." I hung up and returned to the kitchen. Jeff was clearing his plate, his expression unreadable. Emily was happily munching on her pancakes, blissfully unaware of the storm brewing around her. "I've got to go," Jeff announced, grabbing his briefcase. "Right," I said, not looking at him. "More important places to be." "Don't start, Laura," he warned. "I'll be late tonight. Don't wait up." "Doesn't matter," I replied flatly. "We stopped waiting for you a long time ago." He walked out without another word. Emily looked up, concern flickering in her eyes. "Is Daddy mad?" "No, sweetie," I said, forcing another smile. "Daddy's just busy." I hugged her tightly, promising myself I wouldn't let her down. Jeff's betrayal may have shattered our family, but it wouldn't break us. Monica was right. I needed to think about our future. And that future didn't include letting Jeff win. "Can you believe he didn't even show up to Emily's recital?" I vented to Monica as we sat in the break room. I poured a fresh cup of coffee, the steam rising with my frustration. Monica shook her head, her eyes full of sympathy. "He's unbelievable, Laura. How's Emily taking it?" "She's putting on a brave face, but I can tell she's hurt," I replied, stirring my coffee absent-mindedly. "It's like he's ghosting us completely." Monica patted my hand. "She's lucky to have you. You're her rock." That evening, another facade unfolded. Jeff walked in, looking pale and worn out. His excuses rang out before I could ask. "I'm exhausted, Laura. Don't start." "You didn't come to Emily's recital," I said coldly. "You promised her, Jeff." He waved away my words as if they were smoke. "I told you I'm not well. My doctor says I need rest." "Rest?" My voice raised an octave. "You rest all the time, sleeping in the guest room, avoiding us. What kind of father just checks out like this?" His face hardened. "I'm doing my best. My health is at risk. Do you want me to end up in the hospital again?" "No, Jeff," I said through clenched teeth. "But Emily needs her father. I need you. Do you even care?" He turned away, ending the conversation with a dismissive wave. "I'm going to bed. Don't bother me." That night, as I tucked Emily in, I saw the sadness etched on her face. "Mom, why doesn't Dad come home anymore?" she asked, her voice small. "He's not feeling well, sweetie," I said, trying to keep the bitterness out of my voice. "But we're here. We'll be okay." Days turned into weeks, and Jeff's presence became even more sporadic. Every night he arrived later, offering more excuses. I started to notice the small things: unfamiliar perfume on his clothes, new shirts I hadn't bought. Suspicion turned to clarity. One evening, as I cleaned up the kitchen, Emily sat at the table working on her homework. She looked up, frustrated. "Mom, I don't understand this math problem." I walked over, sitting beside her. We worked through the problems together, my mind half distracted by Jeff's increasing absence. Suddenly my phone buzzed. Monica again. "Hey," I answered, stepping away from Emily's earshot. "Laura, I saw Jeff today," Monica said, her voice urgent. "He was having lunch with a woman. They looked close." I swallowed hard. "Where?" "At that new cafe downtown. You need to talk to him, Laura. This isn't right." "I know," I whispered, glancing at Emily. "I'll handle it." When Jeff came home that night, I was waiting. "We need to talk," I said, blocking his path to the stairs. "What's this about now?" He sighed, clearly irritated. "Who was the woman you were with today?" I demanded. His eyes widened momentarily before narrowing. "You're having me followed now?" "No, a friend saw you," I replied, keeping my composure. "Who is she, Jeff?" For a moment he said nothing. Then, with a smirk, he said, "She's none of your business, Laura. We're done, remember?" "Not until Emily knows the truth," I said, my voice steady. "I won't let you walk all over us." "You're making a mistake," he warned, stepping closer. "Back off." "I can't," I replied, hands trembling but firm. "Not this time." He stormed past me, but the impact of his words lingered. The battle lines were drawn, and this time I was ready to fight back. For Emily. For us. Monica closed the office door behind her, an uncharacteristically serious expression on her face. "Laura, we need to talk." I looked up from my work, sensing the urgency. "What's up?" "It's Jeff," she said, taking a seat across from me. "I've been doing some digging, not just because I'm your friend, but because something doesn't add up." My heart pounded. "What did you find?" "First, I noticed the withdrawals. Small at first, from your joint account, but they're adding up, Laura. I think he's moving money." I felt a rush of anger. "He's already taking everything from me. Now the money too?" Monica nodded. "And there's more. I followed him after work a few times. He's definitely with that woman, Haley. They're not just seeing each other. They're planning a life together." My stomach churned. The betrayal I felt before was now multiplied. "I don't know how much more I can take, Monica." "Don't worry," she said firmly. "We're getting ahead of this. I've talked to a lawyer. You need to confront him about the money and Haley." That evening, as Jeff walked in, I was ready for him. My eyes met his, unwavering. "We need to talk. Now." "Not this again," he sighed, rolling his eyes. "Can't it wait?" "No, Jeff, it can't," I said, stepping closer. "I know you've been siphoning money. I know about Haley. Stop pretending." He froze, the color draining from his face. "Who do you think you are, accusing me like this? The mother of your child? Your wife? For now?" I replied coldly. "Did you think I wouldn't find out?" His eyes narrowed. "What are you going to do, Laura? Take everything? Good luck. You're nothing without me." "Funny," I said, my voice steady, "because I think Emily and I will be just fine. And as for your money games, I've already got a lawyer." "You've crossed a line," he snarled, stepping forward threateningly. "You should drop this now before you get hurt." "I'll take my chances," I replied, not budging. "Now get out of this house. Emily deserves better." For a moment he looked like he might lunge at me, but then he scoffed. "You'll regret this," he spat, turning on his heel and storming out. I stood there, shaking. Upstairs, I could hear Emily softly crying. I took a deep breath and headed to her room. She looked up as I entered, her eyes red. "Did Daddy leave again?" I sat beside her, pulling her into a hug. "Daddy's going to be staying somewhere else for a while, sweetheart." "Is it because of me?" she whispered. "No, sweetie. This is between Mommy and Daddy. But we're going to be okay. I promise." As I tucked her in, my phone buzzed with a message from Monica. "Good job tonight. Stay strong." I replied with a simple, "Thank you." Lying in bed, I couldn't sleep. Jeff's threats echoed in my mind, but they didn't scare me. They fueled my resolve. He'd taken enough from us. It was time I fought back. In the morning, I met Monica again. "We need to gather more evidence," she said. "The lawyer thinks we can get him for embezzlement." I nodded. "Whatever it takes." As for Haley, Monica added, "She'll be his downfall. Trust me." I smiled for the first time in days. Then let's bring him down. As I walked out, I felt the weight lifting. Jeff may have started this war, but I was going to end it, and I was prepared to fight with everything I had. For Emily, for me, for our future. The weight of the evidence Monica and I had gathered was heavy in my bag as I walked into Jeff's office. His secretary, a young woman with a nervous smile, nodded toward the door. "He's in a meeting, but he should be out soon." I waited, my heart pounding with anticipation. When Jeff finally appeared, his face darkened at the sight of me. What are you doing here? We need to talk, I said, my voice unwavering. Now. He glanced around, aware of the eyes on us. Fine, let's go to the conference room. As soon as the door closed behind us, I pulled out the folder and tossed it onto the table. Explain this, Jeff. He looked at the documents, his face paling. Where did you get these? That doesn't matter, I shot back. What matters is that you've been stealing money from the company, and you're going to pay for it. He sneered, but there was a flicker of fear in his eyes. You have no idea what you're getting into. Oh, I think I do, I retorted, and you're not getting away with it. Jeff's bravado faltered. You and Emily, this isn't good for either of you, Laura. Don't you dare bring her into this, I snarled. Everything I'm doing is to protect her from you. For a moment he was silent, then he scoffed. Haley and I have plans, Laura, big plans. You're just a bump in the road. Plans? With your mistress? I laughed bitterly. You're more pathetic than I thought. He leaned forward, fists clenched. I'm warning you, Laura. Back off. And I'm telling you, Jeff, I said, standing my ground. It's over. You're not getting another penny from me or this company. He stormed out, slamming the door behind him. I took a deep breath, trying to steady my racing heart. I knew this was just the beginning, but I was ready for whatever came next. Later that evening, Monica and I sat with the lawyer, Mr. Davis. He meticulously reviewed the evidence. This is significant, he said, nodding. We have enough to move forward. Jeff's legal troubles are just starting. As I walked out of the office, a small weight lifted off my shoulders. But I knew the battle wasn't over. At home, Emily sensed the tension but said nothing, her eyes filled with questions I couldn't yet answer. One night, while Emily was asleep, I decided it was time to confront Jeff directly about Haley. I waited in the living room, the clock ticking loudly in the silence. When he finally walked in, his tie loosened and his eyes tired, I faced him. So, you and Haley, how long has this been going on? He smirked, no longer trying to hide his contempt. Long enough to know I need out of this prison. Prison? I echoed, anger boiling over. That's what you call our family? Jeff shrugged. It's the truth. You and Emily, you're just chains keeping me from being happy. Happy? I spat, trembling with rage. You think betraying your family is going to make you happy? I don't care what you think anymore, Laura, he said coldly. I want the divorce finalized, and I'm moving in with Haley, so you better sign those papers. The finality in his voice hit like a punch to the gut, but instead of breaking me, it steeled my resolve. You're not taking anything else from us, I said, my voice firm. Not our money, not our happiness, nothing. Watch me, Jeff retorted, walking past me without another glance. I watched him go, a whirlwind of emotions surging through me, but one thing was clear. This man would not defeat me. For Emily, for our future, I would fight, and I would win. It had been 3 days since Jeff stormed out, and the house felt lighter without his oppressive presence. I focused on Emily and my job, keeping us both busy. But the looming threat of the divorce still hung over me. I needed to make the next move. Just as I settled in after putting Emily to bed, my phone buzzed. It was Monica. Laura, we need to talk. Urgent. I called her back immediately. What's up? Jeff's been pushing through the divorce papers. He's demanding custody of Emily, claiming you're unstable. A cold shiver ran through me. He can't do this, Monica. He thinks he can, she replied. But remember, we have the evidence. We need to act now. All right, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. I'll contact Mr. Davis first thing in the morning. The next day, seated across from Mr. Davis, I explained Jeff's latest ploy. He listened intently, nodding. We need to move quickly. I'll file for an emergency hearing to contest his demands for custody, and will present the financial evidence. I spent the following days gathering my strength. Emily was my world, and there was no way I would let Jeff manipulate the system to take her from me. The hearing date arrived. I dressed carefully, choosing an outfit that made me feel strong and capable. Monica accompanied me for support, her presence a comforting anchor. In the courtroom, Jeff sat with his lawyer, a smug look on his face. When the judge called our case, I felt a surge of determination. Mr. Donovan, the judge began, you're requesting full custody of your daughter on the grounds of your wife's instability. Is that correct? Jeff's lawyer stood. Yes, Your Honor. Mr. Donovan believes it's in the best interest of the child. Our evidence will prove otherwise, Mr. Davis interjected, handing the judge a folder. The judge reviewed the documents, his expression grave. financial embezzlement, infidelity. These are serious accusations, Mr. Donovan. How do you respond? Jeff's face turned red. These are all lies. Laura's trying to ruin me. Mr. Davis stood again. We have irrefutable evidence, Your Honor. Bank statements, photographs, witness testimonies. The judge glanced at me, then back at Jeff. Given the severity of these accusations and the evidence presented, I am issuing a temporary restraining order against Mr. Donovan. Custody remains with Mrs. Donovan. The gavel came down and it felt like a weight had been lifted from my shoulders. Jeff stormed out, glaring at me. This isn't over, Laura. I know, I replied calmly, but I'll be ready. That evening, Monica and I celebrated quietly at my place. Emily sensed the victory and her spirits lifted. I'm so glad Daddy can't take me away, Mom, she said, hugging me tightly. Me too, sweetie, I whispered. Me too. As we sat together, a message pinged on my phone from Mr. Davis. I've uncovered more. Jeff and Haley have been involved in illegal money schemes. This could end his career and more. I looked at Monica, resolve hardening within me. Let's finish this. The final confrontation was near, and while Jeff's vile nature had tested every ounce of my strength, I knew we were on the cusp of reclaiming our lives. And now, more than ever, I was ready to face him and set things right for Emily and me. Days passed, and with each one, the tension rose. Monica and I worked with Mr. Davis, gathering more evidence against Jeff. His downfall was inevitable, but it couldn't come soon enough. One evening, just as I was cleaning up after dinner, Jeff barged in. The smell of alcohol hit me first, sharp and acrid. Laura, we need to talk, he slurred. Jeff, you shouldn't be here, I said, standing firm. There's a restraining order. He ignored me, his eyes wild. You think you can ruin my life and get away with it? You did this to yourself, I replied calmly. You need to leave, now. Suddenly, he grabbed my arm, his grip tight. You'll regret this, Laura. Let go, I shouted, yanking free just as Monica walked in from the kitchen. What's going on here? She demanded, stepping between us. Jeff pointed a trembling finger at me. This isn't over. I need that liver transplant, Laura, and you're going to help me. It's my right after everything I've done for you. I stared at him, the absurdity of his demand sinking in. No, Jeff, I said firmly. You don't deserve anything from me, especially not my liver. You think you can just walk away unscathed? He snarled, his voice rising. You'll regret this, Laura. Monica pulled out her phone, dialing quickly. Security is already on the way, Jeff. You'd better leave. At that moment, Jeff's face contorted with pain, and he clutched his chest, gasping for breath. What the hell did you do, Laura? He wheezed as he collapsed onto the floor. I didn't do anything, I replied, watching as he writhed. Karma's catching up to you. Minutes later, the police and paramedics arrived. They subdued Jeff and attended to his medical emergency. I watched from the doorway as they wheeled him out, my emotions a whirlwind. This man had caused so much pain, yet seeing him like this? Monica placed a hand on my shoulder. You did the right thing, Laura. Remember that. The following days were a blur of legal meetings and emotional conversations with Emily. When Jeff was released from the hospital, he was immediately arrested. Monica had leaked the evidence we collected to the authorities, and Jeff's crimes were now public knowledge. What will happen to Daddy? Emily asked one night, her eyes wide with worry. He broke the law, sweetheart, I explained gently. He has to face the consequences. But will he be okay? She pressed. I hugged her close. He'll get the help he needs, and so will we. We're going to be okay. Court proceedings moved quickly. The evidence was irrefutable, and Jeff's once arrogant demeanor crumbled under the weight of his actions. The judge sentenced him to prison, his empire of lies and deceit collapsing around him. As Jeff was led away in handcuffs, he cast one last venomous look at me. This isn't over, Laura, he spat. Yes, it is, I replied, turning away. For us, it's finally over. With Jeff behind bars, the air felt lighter. Emily and I began the process of healing, supported by Monica and the community of friends who rallied around us. We decided to move to a new city, a fresh start away from the shadows of the past. Feeling the cool breeze of a new beginning, I turned to Emily as we unpacked the last box in our new home. We're stronger now, Emily, I said, smiling at her. It's a new beginning for both of us. She smiled back, a hint of her old joy returning. Yeah, Mom, no more pain, just us. Hope filled the room, and with it the promise of a brighter future. We'd survived the storm, and now it was time to embrace the sunshine ahead. The boxes were finally all unpacked, and our new home felt more like a safe haven. Emily's laughter echoed from her new room as she explored her space, her joy infectious. For the first time in a long while, the corners of our lives weren't shadowed by fear or bitterness. Monica arrived with a bottle of wine and 2 glasses. "To new beginnings," she said, smiling as she handed me a glass. "To new beginnings," I echoed, feeling a weight lift as we clinked glasses. We sat on the porch, watching the sunset paint the sky in vibrant hues. Emily ran around the yard, her energy boundless. Monica glanced at me, concern flickering in her eyes. "How are you really holding up?" I took a sip of wine, feeling the warmth spread through me. "It's been tough, but I feel like we're finally moving forward. Jeff's out of our lives, and I can focus on Emily without looking over my shoulder." Monica nodded. "You're stronger than you think. You never let him break you." The phone buzzed with a text, interrupting our peace. It was Mr. Davis. "Jeff's been moved to a high-security prison. He won't be getting out anytime soon." I showed Monica the message, and she nodded approvingly. Good riddance. Late that night, after Monica left, Emily curled up beside me on the couch, a book clutched in her hands. "Mom, can you read to me?" "Of course, sweetie," I said, pulling her close and starting the story. Her eyes grew heavy with sleep as the comforting words filled the room. When she finally fell asleep, I carried her to bed, tucking her in gently. As I looked at her peaceful face, I knew this was the life we deserved, one free from Jeff's manipulations and deceit. Days turned into weeks, and the wounds slowly began to heal. One morning, as I was getting ready for work, Emily came running in with excitement. "Mom, look, I painted this in art class." She held up a bright, colorful painting of a flower garden. The joy in her eyes was contagious. "It's beautiful, Emily," I said, hugging her. "You're so talented." We hung the painting on the fridge, a symbol of our fresh start. Every day, we built new memories, and the scars from the past faded a bit more. At work, I threw myself into new projects, finding purpose in my career. Monica and I often collaborated, our friendship stronger than ever. One afternoon, she caught me in the hallway. "Laura, there's someone I want you to meet." A tall man with kind eyes approached, extending his hand. "Hi, I'm Alex. Monica's been telling me great things about you." I shook his hand, feeling a flutter of nerves. "Nice to meet you, Alex." Monica winked. "Alex just moved to the area. I thought you two might hit it off." As we chatted, I realized I was smiling more than I had in years. Maybe there was a chance for happiness again, without the shadows of the past haunting me. That night, as I tucked Emily into bed, she looked up at me with those big blue eyes. "Mom, are we going to be okay now?" I smoothed her hair back, my heart swelling with love. "Yes, Emily, we're going to be better than okay. We're going to be happy." She smiled, a pure, radiant smile that lit up the room. "I love you, Mom. I love you too, sweetheart." As I closed her bedroom door and headed to my own room, I felt a sense of peace settle over me. The battle had been long and hard, but we had come out stronger, more resilient. The future was ours now, filled with promise and new beginnings. And I knew, without a doubt, that we had finally found our way home. I stared at Nate's pale face, tubes snaking from his frail body. His hateful words echoed in my mind, "You'll regret this, you worthless excuse for a mother." I couldn't bear it anymore. A smile crept across my lips as a realization washed over me. "Nate, I've been your stepmother, your caregiver, but today I'm done." For years, I had endured the relentless torment from my ungrateful husband, Mark, and his son, Nate. Mark, a failed writer, constantly demanded I leverage my success as a romance novelist to pitch his sloppy manuscripts to my publisher. Ignoring basic writing rules, he expected me to pave his way, riding on my coattails. Nate was no better. The 16-year-old brat, failing in school, would demand my assistance with his homework, only to mock my profession as trashy romance. His malicious attitude was a constant source of stress, yet Mark turned a blind eye, enabling his son's disrespect. The betrayal ran deeper than I realized. One fateful day, I discovered Mark had been submitting his manuscripts as my own, causing professional havoc. When I confronted him, he dismissed my anger with a wave of his hand, and Nate celebrated his father's deceit openly. I had contemplated leaving, but the fear of damaging my reputation and disappointing my parents held me back. That all changed when Nate got into a severe car accident. As I tended to him in the hospital, he continued his verbal abuse, demanding I pay his medical bills. Nate's aggressive demands and Mark's financial irresponsibility pushed me to my limit. I decided to act decisively, contacting a lawyer to start divorce proceedings and disengage from funding Nate's treatment. No more would I be the doormat for their entitled behavior. I had spent years catering to their every whim, sacrificing my happiness for their selfish needs. But not anymore. It was time to reclaim my life, my dignity, and my freedom. As I stood firm in my decision, Mark's desperation grew more apparent. He would stop at nothing to maintain his parasitic grip on my life and success. "Kelly, please reconsider," he begged, his voice dripping with feigned sincerity. "Think about how this will affect Nate's recovery." I scoffed at his manipulation tactics. "You mean the recovery you can't afford because you've been leeching off my earnings for years?" Mark's eyes narrowed, and he dropped the charade. "Don't act so high and mighty. Without me, you'd be nothing. I'm the real talent in this family." His audacity was staggering. I couldn't help but laugh in his face. "Talent? You call plagiarizing my work and submitting it as your own talent?" Mark recoiled, his cheeks flushing with anger. "How dare you accuse me of such a thing?" I pulled out a stack of printed emails, manuscript drafts, and submission records, slamming them on the table. "The evidence speaks for itself, Mark. You've been passing off my work as yours, jeopardizing my career and reputation." Silence hung heavy in the air as Mark's gaze fell to the damning papers. He knew he was caught, but his ego wouldn't let him admit defeat. "You ungrateful witch," he spat. "After everything I've done for you, this is how you repay me?" I shook my head in disbelief. "Everything you've done for me? You mean exploiting my success, mooching off my hard work, and enabling your son's disrespectful behavior towards me?" Mark's face contorted with rage, but before he could respond, Nate's voice cut through the tension. "Don't listen to her, Dad," he sneered from his hospital bed. "She's just a bitter, jealous hag who can't handle real talent." I turned to face the source of so much torment, finally finding the courage to stand up to him. "Talent? You're one to talk, Nate. You're failing in school, disrespecting your elders, and expecting everyone to clean up your messes." Nate's eyes widened in disbelief, clearly unaccustomed to someone challenging his entitled behavior. "How dare you speak to me like that?" he snarled. "Do you have any idea how much my medical bills are costing? You'll pay for this, you washed-up hack!" I couldn't help but laugh at the absurdity of his threats. For too long I had cowered under their intimidation, but no more. "Pay for it?" I retorted, my voice steady and defiant. "I've already paid enough, Nate. I've paid with years of emotional abuse, financial exploitation, and a complete disregard for my well-being." I turned to Mark, my resolve unwavering. "The divorce papers are being filed, and I'm cutting off all financial support. You two can figure out how to solve your problems without my help." As I walked out of that hospital room, a weight lifted from my shoulders. The shackles of their oppression had been broken, and I was finally free. In the days following my confrontation with Mark and Nate, my resolve only strengthened. I gathered every shred of evidence, documenting their deceit and abuse with meticulous detail. As I pored over the paper trail, the depth of their betrayal became increasingly apparent. Emails, draft manuscripts, even plagiarized passages from my published works, it was all there, a damning indictment of their selfish exploitation. I couldn't believe how blind I had been, allowing them to take advantage of me for so long. But no more. This time, I held all the cards. The divorce proceedings moved swiftly, and Mark's attempts at reconciliation grew increasingly desperate. "Kelly, please, think about what you're doing," he pleaded over the phone. "This will ruin us financially. We need your income." I couldn't help but laugh at his audacity. "My income? You mean the one you've been stealing from by passing off my work as your own?" There was a pause on the other end, and I could almost hear the gears turning in his head as he searched for another manipulative tactic. "What about Nate?" he finally said. "He needs you, Kelly. You're like a mother to him." My blood boiled at the mention of that ungrateful brat's name. "A mother? Is that what he calls me when he's berating me, mocking my career, and demanding I foot his bills?" Mark's voice took on a pleading tone. "He's just a kid, Kelly. He doesn't mean it. We're a family, and families stick together." I couldn't believe the nerve of this man. A family? You two have done nothing but tear me down and use me as a meal ticket. Well, no more. Before he could respond, I hung up the phone, severing that toxic line of communication. The next few weeks were a whirlwind of legal proceedings, and Mark's desperation turned to bitterness. Nate, ever the obedient son, followed suit, lashing out with venomous insults and threats whenever he could. "You're making a huge mistake, Kelly," Nate spat during one of his physical therapy sessions. "Dad and I will make sure you regret this." I simply smiled and shook my head. "Regret? Nate, the only thing I regret is not doing this sooner." His face contorted with rage, but I remained unfazed. Their threats and tantrums no longer held any power over me. As the court date loomed, I felt a sense of empowerment I had never experienced before. For years, I had been the victim, but now, armed with the truth and supported by an unwavering legal team, the tables had turned. When the day finally arrived, I walked into that courtroom with my head held high, ready to face my tormentors and reclaim what was rightfully mine: my dignity, my success, and my freedom. The weeks leading up to Nate's accident were a whirlwind of emotions. As the court date approached, the tension in our household was palpable. Mark and Nate seemed to take turns lashing out at me, their frustration boiling over as the reality of their impending downfall set in. "You're making a huge mistake," Mark would snarl, his face contorted with rage. "Do you really think a judge will side with you over your own family?" I would simply shake my head and walk away, refusing to engage with his baseless threats. I had the evidence, the truth, and a team of skilled lawyers on my side. Their desperate attempts at intimidation held no sway over me. Nate, ever the obedient son, followed his father's lead, hurling insults and accusations whenever our paths crossed. "You're a selfish, pathetic excuse for a woman," he spat one day as I passed by his room. "Dad and I are the real talents in this family. Without us, you'd be nothing." I couldn't help but laugh at the irony of his words. For years, they had leeched off my success, plagiarizing my work and exploiting my earnings. And now they had the audacity to claim they were the ones responsible for my achievements. As the court date drew nearer, Nate's behavior became increasingly erratic. He would disappear for hours on end, returning home in a foul mood, reeking of alcohol and defiance. "Where have you been?" I demanded one night as he stumbled through the front door, his eyes glazed over. "None of your business, you miserable hag," he slurred, shoving past me and nearly knocking me over. I wanted to say something to put him in his place, but the words caught in my throat. A part of me still clung to the hope that he would come to his senses, that the boy I had tried so hard to nurture was still somewhere inside that bitter shell. But that hope was shattered the night of his accident. I'll never forget the sound of screeching tires and twisting metal that echoed through the neighborhood. When the police officer showed up at our door, delivering the news that Nate had been in a severe car crash, my heart sank. As I rushed to the hospital, a part of me couldn't help but feel guilty, wondering if the stress of the impending divorce had played a role in his reckless behavior that night. But those thoughts were quickly extinguished the moment I stepped into his hospital room and saw the same look of disdain in his eyes. Well, if it isn't the wicked stepmother herself," he sneered, his voice hoarse from the accident. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for the onslaught of abuse I knew was coming. "Nate, I'm just glad you're alive," I said, trying to maintain a calm demeanor. He let out a harsh laugh that quickly devolved into a pained cough. "Alive? For now, maybe. But with the medical bills piling up, who knows how long that'll last without your precious income to support me." I could feel the anger rising within me, but I pushed it down, determined not to let him bait me into a confrontation. "We'll figure it out, Nate," I said, forcing a smile. "Right now, all that matters is your recovery." But as the words left my lips, I knew they were a lie. The time for placating him and Mark was over. The court date was just days away, and I had made my decision. No more would I be their doormat, their meal ticket, or their emotional punching bag. It was time to take back control of my life, no matter the cost. In the days following Nate's accident, the hospital room became a battleground. Every time I visited, he and Mark would unleash a barrage of demands and insults, each one more outrageous than the last. You need to start paying his medical bills, Mark would declare, his voice tinged with desperation. We're family, Kelly. You can't just abandon us like this. I would simply shake my head, refusing to be swayed by his manipulation tactics. I'm not abandoning anyone, Mark. I'm just no longer enabling your toxic behavior. Nate, ever the obedient son, would chime in with his usual venom. Listen to my dad, you selfish bitch. If you don't start coughing up the cash, I'll make sure you regret it. His threats, once so intimidating, now rang hollow. I had faced down their abuse for too long, and I was finally free from their grip. As the court date loomed closer, their desperation reached new heights. Mark would call me incessantly, begging and pleading for me to reconsider. Nate would hurl insults and accusations, his anger fueled by the realization that his free ride was coming to an end. But I remained steadfast, my resolve unwavering. I had spent years sacrificing my happiness for their selfish needs, and I was done being their emotional and financial punching bag. The night before the court date, I sat down and wrote a letter to Nate and Mark, pouring my heart out one last time. For too long, I've allowed your toxic behavior to dictate my life, I wrote. You've taken advantage of my kindness, exploited my success, and treated me with nothing but contempt and disrespect. I could feel the weight lifting from my shoulders with every word. But no more. Tomorrow, I'm taking back control of my life, my dignity, and my future. I'm no longer going to be your doormat or your meal ticket. As I sealed the envelope, I felt a sense of empowerment I had never known before. Tomorrow, the scales of justice would finally tip in my favor, and Mark and Nate would face the consequences of their actions. The next morning, I stepped into the courtroom with my head held high, surrounded by a team of skilled lawyers and armed with a mountain of evidence. As Mark and Nate were brought in, their usual bravado was nowhere to be seen, replaced by a palpable sense of fear and desperation. The proceedings were swift and decisive. My legal team presented a clear and concise case, laying out the years of emotional abuse, financial exploitation, and plagiarism. Mark and Nate's attempts at defense were feeble and unconvincing, their lies and manipulations no match for the cold, hard truth. As the judge rendered his verdict, I could see the realization dawning on their faces. They had lost, and their reign of terror was finally over. Miss Thompson, the judge said, his voice ringing with authority, based on the overwhelming evidence presented, the court has no choice but to grant your request for a full separation of assets and alimony. I felt a wave of relief wash over me. A weight finally lifted from my shoulders. As the bailiffs escorted Mark and Nate from the courtroom, their protests and insults falling on deaf ears, I couldn't help but smile. It was over. The nightmare was finally over, and I was free to start a new chapter in my life, one free from their toxic influence. As I stepped out into the sunshine, I took a deep breath, savoring the sweet taste of victory and the promise of a brighter tomorrow. The days following the court ruling were a whirlwind of activity. With the divorce finalized and the separation of assets underway, Mark and Nate were scrambling to salvage what little they had left. Of course, their desperation led them to make one last pathetic attempt at manipulation. Kelly, please reconsider, Mark begged over the phone, his voice trembling with false sincerity. We can work this out, I promise. Just give me another chance. I couldn't help but laugh at his audacity. Another chance? Mark, you've had more chances than you deserve. It's over. There was a long pause on the other end, and I could almost hear the gears turning in his head as he searched for another angle. What about Nate? He finally said, his tone shifting to one of concern. He's just a kid, Kelly. He needs you. I scoffed at the absurdity of his words. Needs me? Nate has made it abundantly clear how little he needs or wants me in his life. As if on cue, Nate's voice chimed in from the background, a string of expletives and insults that only reinforced my point. See? I said, my voice calm and resolved. He's made his choice, Mark. Now it's time for you both to face the consequences. With those words, I ended the call, severing that toxic line of communication once and for all. In the following weeks, the true extent of Mark and Nate's downfall began to unfold. With my income and assets no longer available to them, their facade of success quickly crumbled. Mark lost his job, his employer finally growing tired of his empty promises and shoddy work. Nate, faced with the reality of having to fend for himself, lashed out in anger, his once entitled attitude replaced by a bitter resentment. It was during this tumultuous time that an unexpected ally emerged, my father, John. A retired executive with a vast network of influential connections, he had been a silent witness to my ordeal, offering emotional support and guidance when I needed it most. But now he decided to take a more active role. "They've taken advantage of you for far too long, Kelly," he said, his voice stern but laced with concern. "It's time they face the consequences of their actions." With a few well-placed phone calls, my father set in motion a chain of events that would ultimately seal Mark and Nate's fate. Mark's former employer, already disgruntled by his behavior, received a litany of damning reports and testimonials, all detailing his plagiarism and deceit. Within days, he was not only fired but blacklisted from the industry, his reputation in tatters. Nate, still recovering from his accident, found himself facing a harsh reality. With my financial support gone and his father's income evaporating, the prospect of adequate medical care and rehabilitation grew increasingly dim. It was during one of his physical therapy sessions that the weight of his actions finally hit him. "What have I done?" he muttered, his voice small and defeated. "I've burned every bridge, and now I have nothing." As he sat there, surrounded by the consequences of his own entitled behavior, I couldn't help but feel a twinge of pity. But that pity was quickly overshadowed by a sense of vindication, a validation that my decision to break free had been the right one. In the following months, Mark and Nate's lives spiraled further into chaos, their once comfortable existence reduced to a struggle for survival. And through it all, I remained steadfast, rebuilding my life and embracing the freedom I had fought so hard for. As I looked back on that tumultuous chapter, I felt a sense of pride and empowerment. I had faced down my tormentors, endured their abuse, and emerged victorious. And while their downfall was of their own making, I couldn't help but relish in the sweet taste of karmic justice. As the dust settled from the initial legal battle, I knew the war was far from over. Mark and Nate, backed into a corner and faced with the harsh realities of their actions, were bound to lash out one last time. And sure enough, their final act of desperation came in the form of a countersuit. "You can't just take everything from us," Mark spat, his voice dripping with venom as we stood before the judge. "We're entitled to a share of your success, your assets, everything." I couldn't help but shake my head in disbelief. Even after everything, they still clung to the delusion that my achievements were somehow theirs to claim. My lawyer, a skilled and seasoned professional, stepped forward and presented our case with unwavering confidence. "Your Honor, the evidence speaks for itself," he stated, gesturing to the stacks of documents and records that had been meticulously compiled. "For years, Mr. Thompson and his son have engaged in a pattern of emotional abuse, financial exploitation, and outright plagiarism." He paused, letting the weight of those words sink in before continuing. "Not only have they leached off of Miss Thompson's hard-earned success, but they've also actively sought to undermine her career and reputation by passing off her work as their own. They have no legal or moral claim to any of her assets or earnings." Mark and Nate shifted uncomfortably in their seats, their usual bravado deflated in the face of such damning evidence. As the proceedings continued, witness after witness took the stand, corroborating my account and painting a clear picture of the mistreatment I had endured. My publisher, my editors, even former colleagues, all testified to Mark's shoddy writing and his desperate attempts to ride on my coattails. Nate's teachers and school administrators spoke of his dismal academic performance and his entitled, disrespectful behavior towards authority figures. With each testimony, the noose around Mark and Nate's necks tightened, their once confident demeanor crumbling as the truth was laid bare. Finally, it was my turn to take the stand. As I recounted the years of emotional and financial abuse, the courtroom fell into a hushed silence, the gravity of my words weighing heavily on all in attendance. I spoke of the constant belittling and mockery, the demands for financial support, and the outright theft of my intellectual property. I described the countless sacrifices I had made, the dreams I had put on hold, all in the hopes of maintaining some semblance of a family, only to be met with contempt and manipulation at every turn. By the time I had finished, there was not a dry eye in the room, save for Mark and Nate, who sat stone-faced, their eyes burning with hatred. In the end, the judge's ruling was swift and decisive. Based on the overwhelming evidence presented, this court finds no merit in the countersuit, he declared, his voice ringing with finality. Furthermore, we are awarding Miss Thompson full alimony and a substantial sum in punitive damages for the emotional and professional distress she has endured. As the gavel struck, a wave of relief washed over me. It was finally over, the lies, the manipulation, the constant battle for my dignity. I had won, and Mark and Nate were left to face the consequences of their actions. As we exited the courtroom, I caught a glimpse of them, huddled together and whispering furiously. Nate's eyes met mine, and for a brief moment I saw a flicker of realization, a silent acknowledgement of the gravity of his mistakes. But it was too little, too late. The damage had been done, and the only path forward for them was one of harsh lessons and humbling realities. For me, however, the future had never looked brighter. With the weight of their oppression lifted, I was free to embrace a new chapter in my life, one filled with possibilities and the hard-won freedom I had fought so fiercely for. The morning after the final court ruling, I awoke to a sense of liberation I had never experienced before. For the first time in years, I was truly free. Free from the burden of Mark and Nate's toxic influence, free from the constant demands and emotional abuse, and free to live life on my own terms. As I sipped my coffee on the patio, basking in the warm morning sun, I couldn't help but reflect on the tumultuous journey that had brought me to this moment. The years of sacrifice, the emotional turmoil, the legal battles, it had all been worth it to reclaim my dignity and independence. With Mark and Nate's poisonous presence finally excised from my life, a newfound sense of empowerment washed over me. I was in control now, the master of my own destiny, and the possibilities were endless. Over the next few months, I embraced this newfound freedom with open arms. I traveled to exotic locations, soaking in the sights and sounds that would inspire my next literary masterpiece. I indulged in hobbies and passions that had been neglected for far too long, rediscovering the simple joys that Mark and Nate had drained from my life. Wherever I went, I carried with me a sense of pride and accomplishment, a testament to my resilience and unwavering spirit. No longer was I the downtrodden victim, but a survivor, a warrior who had faced down her oppressors and emerged victorious. Of course, there were moments when the echoes of my past would creep in, uninvited whispers of doubt and insecurity, but I quickly learned to silence those voices, to stand tall and bask in the glory of my hard-won freedom. As time passed, the memories of Mark and Nate's cruelty began to fade, replaced by the vibrant tapestry of my new life. Their names, once a source of anguish and torment, became little more than distant specters, ghosts of a past I had left firmly behind. On the rare occasions when I did catch glimpses of their lives, it was through fleeting news reports or whispered gossip, painting a picture of two men brought low by their own hubris and entitlement. Their fall from grace, once a source of vindication, now elicited little more than a passing shrug, a reminder of the consequences of their actions, but nothing more. As for me, my focus remained steadfastly on the future, a future brimming with promise and possibility. I poured my heart and soul into my writing, crafting tales of strength and resilience that resonated with readers around the world. And in those quiet moments when the weight of my journey truly hit me, I couldn't help but feel an overwhelming sense of gratitude. Gratitude for the lessons learned, the battles won, and the unbreakable spirit that had carried me through the darkest of times. For too long I had been a prisoner in my own life, shackled by the demands and manipulations of those closest to me. But now, as I stood on the precipice of a new dawn, I was finally free, free to soar, free to dream, and free to embrace the life fought so hard to reclaim.